Good evening. It is 6 o'clock on December 9th, and I call this regularly scheduled Dunwoody City Council meeting to order unless there's an objection. I see none. The meeting is called to order. Councilman Price, can you lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
At this meeting, help us to make decisions which keep us faithful to our mission and reflect our values. Give us strength to hold to our purpose, wisdom to guide us, and a keen perception to lead us. And above all, keep us charitable as we deliberate.
It is time for public comments. If you have a card and have not yet turned it in, you may turn it in right here. Raise your hand. If you have cards, just bring them up here and she'll get them to me. We have 30 minutes. You can bring them up now if you have cards, because now's public comment time. Okay, if you have cards, bring them up. If you're here for the rezoning, the first read, there'll be a public hearing. You don't have to do public comment. You can wait to talk about that till the public hearing. If you choose to, you can speak both times. That's fine. Okay, thank you. We'll have 30 minutes. Each speaker has 3 minutes. We have a section at another public comment section at the end, if anyone is still here. And like I said, we have a public hearing today on a rezoning, and that will have time for 10 minutes of public comment on either side of the issue for the rezoning. With that, Ms. Singleton, approach the microphone. No need to rush. The time doesn't start till you get up there. There's a clock. Sharon, are we running the clock? Can they see the timer though? Okay, go ahead and start.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. My name is Krista Singleton. I am here to speak about item number 10, the contract amendment for the Peeler Road path design. I have been a Dunwoody resident for now 19 years. My husband, Brett Westmoreland, and I are owners of one of the properties in Four Oaks along Peeler Road 2914. I'm here to speak in response to the proposed design project with Practical Design Partners. One of the supporting attachments in today's agenda is a summary of a May 2024 commission meeting, a public meeting. And at that meeting, the council members that were in attendance, as well as Department of Public Works staff, were reminded of Mayor Doetsch's your charge to both the council as well as Public Works to come back with 3 proposals, a 6-foot, a 10-foot, and a 12-foot. Your comment to us was this project needs to do right by the homeowners. The attached proposals for this pathway moving forward discuss a proposed 12-foot pathway, not the final stages or next stages for a 6, 8, or 12-foot as requested. Well, while we're moving forward, I want to first thank Councilman Lambert for reaching out to us to present 3 options to address some of the neighborhood concerns. One of the concerns is about speeding on Peeler, and this project pathway moving forward starts to address that. The installation of a privacy fence along the residential pathway, which again begins to address this. I want to thank you for your advocacy to have the design partners include this fence to extend the length of the Four Oaks neighborhood to protect pedestrians and prevent them from entering our neighborhood. If this path moves forward, we are very concerned that individuals will continue to enter our neighborhood. There's a gap area between 2915 and where the county has their water pipe at 2890. And we'd like to thank you for advocating to have Public Works redirect the stormwater away from our homes. We are very concerned that if this path moves forward, there will be disruption to the stormwater, which will not only damage my own personal property, but the neighborhood as well. And again, Mayor, you said do right by the homeowners. But still unsettled as you all deliberate tonight and moving forward is in this memo that the city provided about the stormwater is, will the city abandon these pipes? Some of the pipes in 2915, if you do this, you need to take ownership of those pipes. And will you take ownership of them and will you fill them with flowable fill as this project moves forward so we don't have to worry about water and damage to our homes? Again, do right by the homeowners. As an affected homeowner in this area, we're requesting that Public Works and the City Council continue to provide transparency on this project, codify protection from homeowners, and again, do right by us homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh, exactly 3 minutes. Good job. Robert Port, approach the microphone and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I don't expect to take that entire time. I'm Robert Port. I've been a resident of Dunwoody. I was just thinking either 37 or 38 years. I'm here to speak in favor of your continued efforts, which I appreciate as a biker, to continue to have the bike paths on the side of the road and the walking trails and whatnot. And to me, as someone who's been here even before the city became a city, I think one of the important things is to make this a very livable city, make this a city that citizens of all ages can appreciate and have things to do with. And as I was driving here, I was thinking of, just last night, I was over at Brook Run with my wife and we're looking at the Christmas lights, the holiday lights, and it's wonderful. That's all very new. And the bike paths and the trails that are being done are great. And to the extent any of you haven't been, for example, on the Comet Trail or the Greenway, or even in New York City, they've built a trail up on one of the one of the old subway platforms. It's great. You see people walking out there, even though there are bikers out there like me. There are people with strollers. There are people jogging. There are people on rollerblades. So I'm here to ask the council, number one, thank you for supporting in the past the funds to do that, and hope that you continue to do so. And I don't know if it's appropriate to do so, but I'd be happy to field any questions that any of you may have. I'm an attorney and I'm generally dealing with a judge, and I always end my presentation like that to see if anyone's got anything to suggest. So with that, I will thank you, and thank you for your continued support for bike trails, bike paths, and bike lanes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's a one-way conversation. Thank you. Matthew Wagner. Due to our interpretation of the Open Records Act and most government's interpretations. Go ahead, Matthew. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, to the Honorable Madam Mayor and esteemed members of the City Council, my name is Matt Wagner. I have lived on Leisure Lake Drive for exactly 5 years as of next Friday. And I am one of the co-founders of Active Dunwoody, which is an online community of Dunwoody area residents that celebrates and promotes wellness and physical activity within the city. In the summer and fall of 2019, my family of 5 and I were searching for a place to call home in the greater Atlanta metro. As we scoured the area from top to bottom, one community rose above. If you think of a Venn diagram where a series of circles overlap in the center, where all the right factors converge, for us, those circles were great educational opportunities for our kids, safe, quiet, and friendly neighborhoods, proximity to fun activities inside Atlanta, proximity to natural spaces outside Atlanta, and robust public infrastructure like parks, bike lanes, and pedestrian pathways. On the last point, we could tell Dunwoody was taking very intentional steps in the right direction. Brook Run Park alone practically sealed the deal for us. We also appreciated the Dunwoody Nature Center, numerous bike lanes, and walkable spaces like those found around the perimeter. After all, Dunwoody is a very active community. Together with my good friend Lauren Sock, who's the owner of Functionize Health in the Village and a pivotal member of the Dunwoody small business community, we started Active Dunwoody in 2023. Originally a handful of local runners and cyclists, today it has grown to nearly 3,000 members. Clearly, people care about getting outside and being active in this city. During COVID, I decided I would run, walk, or cycle every corner of this city. And I can actually prove it on my Strava app if anybody cares to look. I quickly learned the places in Dunwoody that are safe for these activities and those that are not. Sadly, many of the truly hazardous areas are the very places that people travel most frequently. Dunwoody Village, Mount Vernon Road, Chambly Dunwoody Road, and Tilly Mill all have sections where cyclists and pedestrians must compete with motorists for the same narrow strip of pavement, risking life and limb in the process. Having closely followed last year's Parks and Trails bond issue, I know the topic of bike lanes, sidewalks, and multi-use paths is a thorny one. And I sincerely appreciate the City Council for taking on this issue with thoughtfulness and care. And I want to encourage this assembly to keep pressing on, keep working toward the vision of the Trail Master Plan. Don't be stymied by the negative Nellies, the gloomy Gusses, and the Debbie Downers. Keep working toward compromise, but
Oh, wow.
make the most of the opportunities we have been given by this amazing location called Dunwoody.
Thank you. I'm not going to get this name right because I can't totally read it. Mawash. Manish. Yeah, now I see the N is an N and not a W.
It's partially my handwriting, partially
Yes.
my name.
Yeah. You'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Great. Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I moved to Dunwoody just roughly 10 years ago, and we love it here. We love the city. I'm here to support Dunwoody continue to expand trails across the city. We love the outdoors. We love being outside. You obviously have heard from multiple members already of the community, but my son, he's 6 years old. You'll find him on a scooter or a bike every day, and we think it's something simple that everybody should be doing. When you're out there, we believe it's a great way to get exercise. Sedentary lifestyles, as you all know, is a very challenging situation for everybody's health. We're trying to promote that with our son. It drives better sleep, and believe it or not, it keeps them off the screens, right? We want to keep them off the screens. We want them out there, and it's been great. My wife's in sleep medicine, and she is out there walking 3 to 4 times a day, and what she tells all her patients to make sure that you're getting out there and walking. As you've heard, the safety is not the best on some of these routes and some of these paths, and so we want to push for more trails and more safe paths out there for our son to feel safe and for all of us to walk very safely out there. I also believe it creates a sense of community for us. Today, it's unfortunate. When we grew up, my dad would or my mom would tell me, go out on a bike, go out there and have fun. Right now, we rarely see kids out playing outside, walking around, playing wherever we are, in whatever neighborhood we are. And I think it could increase our sense of community, which Dunwoody already has a very nice community, but we don't see it on a day-to-day basis. So I'm here just to support, again, the many members who are here and the many community members to keep pushing forward on more trails across Dunwoody. I think it will continue to help us as a city.
Thank you. Melinda, if you'll share your last name when you get here, please. And you'll have,
Linda Mischik, and I'm all for the trails, but my husband's going to also talk,
Okay.
but my neighbor, Ray and Tracy Dankberg, could not be here tonight, but they did send me a letter, which I've sent to Mr. Lambert as well, but they asked me to read it. Ray is in commercial real estate and his wife is a school teacher. They've lived about 20 years, I think, in the Four Oaks neighborhood. They respectfully propose that the city of Dunwoody approve the installation of another Peeler Road sidewalk alongside our Four Oaks neighborhood for all the following important community safety, accessibility, and quality of life reasons. A sidewalk would provide improved safety for pedestrians, especially children and the elderly, better accessibility for those with mobility challenges and in wheelchairs, improved curb appeal, continue to enhance property values, increased community as more people would spend time outdoors, walking, jogging, pushing strollers. While there might be some short-term inconvenience during the construction period, the long-term benefits far outweigh this short-term disruption. City of Dunwoody, your input and approval of this project is crucial in shaping our community and continuing its positive trajectory. Please move forward with this project. Thank you. Ray and Tracy Dankberg.
thank you. Larry, You'll have 3 minutes when you get to the microphone and begin.
Melinda told me not to talk too long, so
Okay.
I will be seriously brief. The first thing I wanted to say, Larry Mischik, I've lived in Dunwoody for 40 years. I've lived in Four Oaks for 32 years. And the one thing I want to say right now for all you folks is what you do at Brook Run Park is absolutely simply amazing. I take my dog there every single day. We were there this morning in the rain. We were there Saturday in the cold. It's every single day. And what goes on there is it's actually simply amazing. We have a daughter that lives in Marietta with a 4-year-old. She comes to our park with the 4-year-old because there's nothing in Marietta for her. Having said that, I have the full faith that you will do the right thing when it comes to the path in front of Four Oaks, and I guess the path in the whole area, because I know you always are trying to do the right thing, and I am 1000% behind this. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Edge.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Kelly Edge. I'm a resident of Four Oaks as well, and I'll make it brief. I just wanted to come and share that me and my family are also in support of the path. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Ali, are you sitting where I can't see you again?
Yep.
It's like a game, right?
I'm winning.
Yeah, you were totally winning. You're totally winning. You have 3 minutes, sir.
So as we reflect a little bit on, now that we're in December, and as we reflect a little bit on 2024, it has been a very big year for Dunwoody. And there are so many accomplishments that have occurred this year. I mean, there are so many positive things that have, the clock's not started. There's so many positive things that have occurred for the city. There we go. There's so many positive things that have occurred for the city. And I mean, just trying to even rattle off some of the things that have happened. I mean, we had a really good transition to our new chief of police. We've got High Street up. We've got those new Dunwoody signs up. We've got some of the new pedestrian things. We've dispositioned some of those lawsuits that have occurred, invested money correctly. We even got rid of Walmart. So a really, so a really positive year for us so far. And if you really reflect on all the other cities and everything you've done, I mean, everything here has been incredibly positive. The people behind that podium need to be thanked. The people that work for the city, the people that volunteer for the city. There's just been a lot of great things that happen. And honestly, I just don't think we're done. I think we've got a really good 2025 coming in. I think more and more people are going to be attracted to the city of Dunwoody. Everything is very positive. The one minor thing that maybe was not positive for the city was, if you think back on the bond voting or bond, whatever it was, when they were voting for the bonds, that stated with interest rates going down, there might be another go at that. Thinking more about what the city might need and want, I've noticed a lot, like, for example, the city of Brookhaven is building a brand new town hall, whatever you might call it, next to the MARTA. Sandy Springs is building, I think, a brand new state-of-the-art police station. And it's not one of those things where we'll frivolously spend money to keep up with the Joneses. But thinking about keeping up, I have noticed with all the extra amount of police cars out here, I mean, think about all the hires we've done with the police department, think about all the community people we've had. I think the city of Dunwoody is kind of running out of space in this building. So maybe for consideration, it might be wise for us to possibly look at possibly building maybe our own police station or something, another space at least, that we can kind of continuously grow. Again, right now, it's a great scenario that we're in. And hopefully it's just something to consider in 2025. But again, before I leave this podium, I just want to say everything you guys have done this year has been great. People that I've talked to in the city of Dunwoody, people that are not in the city of Dunwoody are just jealous, rightfully so. It's been a fantastic year. There's been a lot of accomplishments, and you've done a great job.
Thank you. Jason and Paige Metzger, is one of you coming? Both of you coming? You still only get 3 minutes.
Hey there, I'm Paige Metzger, and I've lived in Dunwoody since 1979. We're basically here to say that our family is 100% supportive of the trail network and connecting the city. Not only do trails connect places, but also a community, as you've heard from several people tonight. Trails essentially equate to a healthier lifestyle, and I don't know anyone that doesn't strive for that. And I appreciate you using our pre-existing right-of-ways to provide alternate means of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say ditto, thank you all for your efforts on this. I really appreciate it. And I want to just say I've been able to use these enhancements, the new trails in Georgetown. I bicycle over there for both shopping and for recreation, and definitely feel a lot safer coming up Chambly Dunwoody with the new trail enhancement, and keep at it. I've had a couple of chances to ride on the new trail in front of Perimeter Mall. It's just a little short section, and then the rest of that area is still scary,
We're
but
getting there.
it definitely is an improvement. And yeah, I was on, it's just great to see these pieces slowly being built out and connected. And so I really appreciate the work that you guys have done to keep this moving forward, and future residents will definitely appreciate it as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sharon, are you keeping a running tally of time? Oh, you are. So how much time is left? Okay, so just coincidentally, because we put the cards in order we received them, every card that's left is here to talk about the rezoning, and that is fine. In a few minutes, we'll have a public hearing on the rezoning, and there'll be 10 minutes for and 10 minutes against. And there's nothing that stops you from testifying in both, but I just wanted to make sure everyone understood the process. Jordan Horowitz.
So Jordan Horowitz, 5239 Vernon Lake Drive, newer to Dunwoody, moved here about 3 years ago from Inman Park, where we had plenty of things to do with our young family, but we wanted to move up to Dunwoody. We love it up here, and we are running out of things to do. We belong to the JCC. We've tried to go outside as much as we can, weather permitting. So we are absolutely in favor of the rezoning, and we're hoping something is built, a pickleball or a family entertainment center. And we are very hopeful that the rezoning is allowed so it can give me and my family more things to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Felix. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Felix Jimenez. I moved to Dunwoody about 2 years ago. My address is 4890 Cambridge. I have a 2-year-old son, and we love Dunwoody. Couldn't be more grateful for the type of work you guys do and how you do it. We're very much in support of a family fun center. Would like to keep the spending in Dunwoody, where today we belong to the JCC. We go different places, open areas. Same in support for the trails. Just trying to keep sort of promoting the investments, right, that are coming into Dunwoody, and want to keep supporting the businesses that are willing to do that in Dunwoody. I see a couple of dead spots in different areas of Dunwoody, that retail shops that are not opening and they're not filling. And I think these sorts of things promote that kind of business behavior. And I think that's what we're trying to do for the city and for the residents in it. So thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. David Barnhart. Approach the microphone, sir, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is David Barnhart. I live at 5299 Brook Lake. I moved there a couple of years ago, and it's a great neighborhood. I would like for a development. This may be getting ahead of the schedule,
That's
but
fine.
I would like for the current owner of the property to develop what they have in mind in general, but I'm concerned about the lack of specified limits. I happen to be in the shopping center business, and I understand and have experienced if you don't have those limits in place, people tend to exceed them with every opportunity. And it really has to do with special events and the restaurants. You have limits on several uses of 5,000 square feet, but you don't list the number of them. And in my opinion, in my experience, restaurants and special events where you have food and alcohol being served, you should have 10 parking spaces per every 1,000 square feet of retail space. And if it's just normal retail without alcohol and food involved, at 5 per thousand. This entire development only has 290 spaces. And if you fill it with the rest of it, like the upper level, has about 40,000 square feet in it, more or less. You'd have to have, well, actually it's 49,000 feet. So you'd have to have close to 500 spaces if you filled that with special events, space, rental space, and restaurants. And you only have 290,000, which means you have roughly half the parking you need. In my experience, people who come to these events, if they can't find a place to park, they just go to the nearest residential street. And if you happen to live on that street and people are partying and coming home at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and you're trying to go to sleep, 100 yards away, it can be a dangerous situation. The other thing is, I've been advised by some people who've been to some of these, is that you should institute a no gambling policy. It's a big, I guess, I don't know what you call it, but it basically that what happens is these various sporting things, you get a bunch of people and they start drinking and they start betting on one another. And that seems to generate a lot of boisterous departure from the area. So again, I'd like for them to have this, but I do think that
Thank you.
with the number of parking spaces they have, they're limited by
Thank,
what they can put there.
thank you. Charles Wing, approach and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I've lived in Dunwoody for 38 years and saw the tremendous growth, and I love it. I'm here basically to support some of the things that Mr. Barnhart said, but also wanted to know about Lato and taking the parking spaces from La Crema, which has become a very popular coffee cafe type place here in Dunwoody. As you know, La Crema backs up to Mount Vernon and I think Jet Ferry there. And a lot of people park there in back of it in order to go into La Crema because La Crema has very limited parking spaces up front. So I want to make sure that Lato does not proceed to go over the parking spaces there at La Crema. The same way with the bank. Are they considering using parking spaces at the bank? Well, I don't think that should be a part of their deal. So again, the parking is a serious problem, and I agree with Mr. Barnhart. The other thing too is that I don't know how they've approached this so far, but the lighting, if they want to have, 200, 300 cars out there and open to midnight, there better be some very good lighting because we all know about the crimes that have happened at Kroger. And they happen to seem to be more frequent than ever. So they need serious lighting over there. And if they're big lights, tall lights, and they're going to reflect into neighborhoods adjacent to the Ladle property, whatever it's called, whatever they're going to do. The same thing with security. I don't know what the rules are in the city for security, but whatever they do, they have to have security cameras around that complete building because, as you know, the back of that building juts up to Jet Ferry, and it's very, very dark. The same way in the area behind the building where it butts up against La Crema. So anyway, just a couple of things. I'm all in favor of development. I know we need the tax revenue, which is great, but I think we got to look at these things very seriously before we make any commitments to them about their project. Thank you. Oh, and Mrs. Mayor, Mr. Barnhart and a few of us are veterans, so we look forward to that Veterans Memorial being done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, us too.
Okay,
We
thank
do
you.
too. Thank you. Lenny Bluestein or Bluestein. Totally.
Yeah, Greg's brother.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is Lenny Bluestein. I live in the Oxford Chase subdivision. I just think I'm here for rezoning. I'm in favor of it. I moved here about a year and a half ago. I grew up in Dunwoody in the 90s. Big reason we moved back was just for young families. This is the place to be. The walkability. We talked, we heard about Crema and everything on our side of Dunwoody. It's kind of lacking in what there is on the west side of Dunwoody, what's around here. And an opportunity like this doesn't happen very often. So I just think rezoning is the best thing for young families moving into this area and something we can walk to and enjoy and actually lessen the logjam of traffic because we have those sidewalks and let's use them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is that it? I've got one more. Okay. You can give your card, but we're pretty much out of time. No, I have other cards, Joe. Stop. Gregory Yates? No, that's not Yates. Yeah, you'll have to say your last name. My eyes are getting worse as the evening goes on.
Gregory Yakris. Good evening, Council. So I am here. Oh, my address is 2864 Fontainebleau Drive. I've been in Dunwoody my wife and I have been in Dunwoody for about 7 years. We have 2 young kids and here also in favor of the rezoning. Especially as this time of year, weather starts to get colder, it's raining out, we start to wonder, okay, where do we go with the kids to get the energy out? And when you can't go to the parks, we constantly find ourselves going like, oh, we got to go out to Alpharetta or Sandy Springs or, various other parts of the city to get a good, fun indoor space where you can do family activities. So the rezoning just feels like a prime opportunity to get something in that place where, it would really be a big draw for Dunwoody. So just again, here in favor of that rezoning opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. I have your cards. If you're not, there'll be an opportunity to talk during the rezoning if that's what you're here for. And otherwise, I'll hold your card to the end of the public comment section at the end of the meeting. We appreciate everyone's input. This was a nice amount of people today. All right, next is the city managers. Oh, no, go ahead. Councilwoman Harris.
I'd like to propose an agenda change and remove item number 15 from business items and place it on the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, second by John. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so Sharon, anybody opposed? No. Sharon, you got that 15 is now consent. Okay. All right, now we have the city manager's report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'll start with the Parks Department tonight. Waterford Park Playground has been completed and it's open to the public. The ribbon cutting will be scheduled in the next coming weeks. We also have our holiday lights display is open from 5 to 10 daily from now and through December 31st. We also have in a maintenance item, we've winterized the water fountains and turned on the heaters throughout the park system. And the water fountains are closed for the season. We have Veterans Day. We welcome 200 guests at Brook Run Park on November the 11th. So that was a great turnout there. Also, we have Dunwoody Preservation Trust hosted 32 kids aged 6 through 12 for their inaugural Thanksgiving break camp. The final item under parks is so far I've had 100 letters collected for holiday lights opening nights for the Letters to Santa program, and 50 letters are collected for Letters for Seniors program, and the letters campaign run until mid-December. Under police, we have the installation of the Aerodome drone pod. It's been placed on top of City Hall. If you have any other questions about that, speak to the police chief when you have a moment about that new technology that we have here at City Hall. We also received our first of 2 new replacement prisoner transport vans. Those are on the scene now. And unfortunately, people like to run into the back of those vans on 285. And so we've had to replace a couple of them. through our insurance or through their insurance. We have our annual holiday food drive continues through December 16th. And the drop off of non-expired canned and dried foods can be dropped off in the police lobby 24 hours a day. Also, an interesting piece I want to point out here under the workload activities. We had an entering auto on Ashford Dunwoody Road. And during that call, we used our Condor camera system as part that's in the mall parking lot or in that business parking lot. Also, at the same time, used our flock camera system to locate the vehicle that was used in the car break-ins, which also had a tag on it from another car, stolen tag as well. And that Range Rover was located in by the Atlanta police in the city of Atlanta. And also the other car was located by the Brookhaven Police Department. But I point that out because of the technology has to do with that, with the new drone we have on the building, and also the flock cameras and the Condor cameras are a great asset in helping solve crime. The crime stats comparison for 23 and 24 are online through October of this year. There's a link within your report that's available to the public to view. Under Public Works, we have the stormwater pipe program, and that's part of the All-American Rescue Plan Act. Funds for stormwater improvement have been allocated, and that's a total of $4.9 million of this federal funding in the stormwater system in Dunwoody over the past 3 years. And as part of that, Low Engineering, who does the majority of our engineering work here in the city, that's our primary consultant for engineering, and they had received a merit award for completing 2 miles of stormwater pipe rehabilitation in the past 2 years. So quite an accomplishment, and we are thankful to have received that money to be able to improve the underground infrastructure in Dunwoody. The Perimeter Center West pedestrian hybrid beacon has been activated. And also there's a picture in your report of the gateway sign that's been installed at the Shanley Dunwoody Road and Cotillion Drive area. The Ashford Dunwoody Phase 1 path has been substantially completed. There's a few punch list items that remain along there, including the bus shelter to go in that section of trail. Under communications, we've been working with the police department to promote the new Public Safety Ambassadors program, and y'all have seen them in the parking lot. Hopefully the public can see as well. The 2 vehicles we have out there as part of the ambassador program that assist the police with activities that were within their scope. Community development, we have the Element Hotel at Campus 244 is open to the public. The remaining restaurants and the courtyard will be completed by early 2025. Upcoming events include that we had this year, which was on December the 1st. We had the Light Up Dunwoody event at Brook Run Park, our Light Up Dunwoody event and the Brook Run Park piece. And that was pointed out earlier, which was the nice lights we have over there that were turned on at that date. Code Enforcement Division has removed over 300 signs from the right-of-way during the election season to keep the streets clean. So we appreciate Code Enforcement's effort, making Dunwoody look great. Economic Development, we conducted 21 retention meetings and 12 business recruiting meetings in the past month. Finance, we have the monthly financial report for October 2024 was published on the finance page of the city website. And also the ARP and the CARES Act web pages have been updated with all activity through October 31st. We also go down through the rest of the report. We'll conclude with the municipal court and the human resources. Under municipal court, we disposed of 408 cases and reset 38 cases over the past month. The judges had a meeting last month and they did increase the fine for shoplifting within the city of Dunwoody. Also, under human resources, we filled another police officer position and 1 sergeant position. The sergeant position, just so y'all note, is the first sergeant position we filled with an outside person. And so it's just part of the growing police department. And we are thrilled to be narrowing the number of vacancies within that department. I'm here as well as the staff to answer any questions on this report.
Questions? Oh, Tom. Go ahead.
More so comments. I just want to thank Parks. If you haven't been over to Waterford, looks great. I went over there recently, and the playground and the improvements around that, it's really outstanding. That's a wonderful community park over there. For anyone in the city that hasn't been there, I encourage you to stop by and check it out. It looks great. And I also just wanted to just make a brief comment too about the gateway signs that was in there. There's been some dialogue in the community about it, and I just wanted to point out that the sign of Shannon Dunwoody is not complete. There's lighting and landscaping that will be added at the appropriate times of the year. So it is still a work in progress. I mean, I know there's, as I said, there's been some comments, and not all of the signs are going to be of the same scale. There'll be different signs as they get installed throughout the city. But I just wanted to make some community members aware of that as well, that there's still work to be done.
Stacy.
I guess just to continue the topic of the gateway signs, Eric, do we have a schedule, or do we know when the next ones are going in? Just because I really want to see that vertical one on Roberts.
Sure. Michael Smith has the information on that.
Yes, the one on Roberts, they were supposed to start working on this week. It's supposed to rain through Wednesday, so we'll see, but that should be, as soon as the weather clears, they should be out there working on that.
I just want to also encourage the public, like, it makes a really good Christmas card picture. I'm just saying.
Right.
My kids fit just nicely in the O's, and it's a pretty cool picture.
Anybody else? John?
Yeah, Eric, thank you for second month in a row you've mentioned the Cherry Hill path. It says that the plans are complete and we're getting utility quotes. At one point, we were in discussion regarding the Cherry Hill neighborhood is completely on septic. That community backs up to the DeKalb Waterworks. And there was thoughts at one point of tying into the sewer system on Eitzen. I want to make sure that the city is talking to DeKalb County in the sense of the utility work. And if that's in the works in any way, shape, form, or the other, I don't want us to ever install a path or infrastructure without understanding what DeKalb might be doing under that infrastructure in the short term.
Right. And we did have some conversation, and Michael may have some additional information on that, but we did have some conversation initially with the new development going in and the sewer line being installed to have the possibility of a connection for the existing residents that were there. Of course, there are some expense that the residents would have to incur on that, but the availability of sewer is the primary concern there. Michael, is there anything additional you want to add to that?
Yes, I'm not aware of any plans that DeKalb has. There was a builder there that had several lots in that neighborhood, and he was looking into it. But the last time I talked to him, he said he had decided not to do that because of the expense of running that sewer. So I'm not aware of any plans for a connection at this point.
All right, well, thank you. And again, we're not the sewer. We don't run sewer. DeKalb County does. My only ask is that we coordinate with DeKalb and make sure that there's no sewer going to be tearing up that line after we install it.
Right.
Okay.
Fair point. We'll check on that too.
It would be nice if somebody could have a conversation with the neighborhood to say we've had a couple of neighborhoods in Dunwoody over the last few years switch from septic to sewer. There's a whole process. We've also had individuals that want to do it. It's almost impossible to do it as an individual if your neighborhood doesn't do it. And so there's been some frustration there, but it would be an interesting conversation because the environment is better if we get people off of septic, but it is expensive, not just in the infrastructure required for each home, but your fees change because you have sewer fees now, which are much higher than water. So, but I do wish, particularly there next to the water source, that we could get them off septic. So thank you. I'm pleased that we've adjusted this shoplifting fines upward. I appreciate the quick action on that. Thank you. It was a police officer that actually suggested that to me. So I appreciate that. All right. Anybody else? Thank you, Eric. It was a good report. All right, now we have a public hearing. Madeline. Oh, I think you have to read it, Sharon. I'm sorry. I got ahead.
An ordinance to amend the city of Dunwoody zoning classification and map of lot parcel number 06-339-05004, lot parcel parcel 06-339-05001 and lot parcel number 06-339-05003 in consideration of zoning case RZ 24-02 for 2480, 2526 Mount Vernon Road and 2495 Jet Ferry Road from NS Neighborhood Shopping District zoning classification to C1 Local Commercial District.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The subject request this evening is to rezone an existing shopping center from neighborhood shopping to local commercial. The shopping center in question is this one pictured here at the intersection of Mount Vernon Road, Jet Ferry Road, and Dunwoody Club Drive. The existing shopping center currently has a large vacancy, which has had a string of grocery stores over the years, each of which has failed. It's currently sitting vacant. The subject site consists of 3 parcels. It's the shopping center, which is 2480 and 2495, but it also includes the Chase Bank at 2526 Mount Vernon Road. And that was constructed a couple of years ago. It does exclude the Crema at the corner. That's not part of the zoning request. The existing building, 2480 is around 37,000 square feet. 30,000 of that is the current large vacancy that the tenant is seeking to fill. 2495 is the other part of the shopping center, which has smaller stalls. That's where there's the veterinary clinic, and some other retail shopping as well. Overall, the site has approximately 325 total parking spaces. The proposal before you tonight does not include any new buildings or any expansions or alterations of the existing footprint. The only changes that the applicant is proposing to make to the physical environment is to restripe the parking lot and add more landscaping islands, and that will provide more spaces to plant trees. So there will be some minor changes to the aesthetics of the property, but the buildings are going to be the same. What this rezoning would change would be the types and number of allowed uses. What is already allowed in the neighborhood shopping center would still be allowed. So that's things like grocery stores, restaurants, veterinary clinics, and doctor's offices. The rezoning would allow 11 additional uses. And so expanding the number and types of allowed uses would give the property owner greater flexibility in finding tenants to fill those existing vacancies. The newly allowed uses are listed here along with some examples. So things like clubs or lodges, that would be country clubs and fraternal organizations, a cultural exhibit, that would be a museum, schools, and this is something that's specific to the conditions of this case. Those would be private and public schools, vocational trade schools. Those would be limited to 5,000 square feet of floor area. These limitations are on the floor area were proposed by the applicant in response to comments from the Planning Commission with concerns about, school traffic and things of that nature. Animal care and boarding, restaurant accessory to an office use. That's a very strange random one. Restaurants are already allowed in this zoning district, but we have a special use in our code that's specific to the ground floor of multi-story office buildings. Special event facilities, so that would be things like wedding venues. Again, concerns about traffic led to a condition limiting it to a maximum of 5,000 square feet of floor area. Liquor stores, medical and dental laboratories, other personal improvement services are already allowed there. That would be like salons and spas, but anything that's not listed under the current code, things like personal shopping or personal fitness would also now be allowed. Tennis centers, so sports clubs, and then indoor participant sports and recreation. That's what prompted this request. An example of that would be indoor pickleball, which the applicant is proposing. What's on the screen right now is a detailed permitted uses list. So everything in green is everything that is currently permitted in the neighborhood shopping district. And just to make it really clear what's already allowed and what's proposed, the newly allowed uses are shown in yellow. And I can go back to this to reference it if you guys have any more detailed questions a little later on. Overall, we find that this request would be consistent with the requirements of the code in terms of it's meeting the comprehensive plan. The Mount Vernon character area specifically calls for mixed use and also specifically calls to doing things that would help those areas attract tenants to existing vacancies. And currently the zoning is a barrier to that. The neighborhood shopping district is, very specifically a very limiting commercial district. And the local commercial is a little bit more of an expanded list of allowed uses, and that would give them the flexibility to start filling some more of those spaces. And we feel that this meets the intent of the code in terms of allowing them to activate existing vacant storefronts. And we see that that would be a benefit to the shopping center, yes, but also to the surrounding area overall, because once you start having a little bit more activity in one place, it can help spur activity in others. A quick summary of the Planning Commission meetings. We had our first public hearing at the October 8th Planning Commission meeting. Consideration of the case was deferred to the November 19th meeting, and that was based on feedback from the Planning Commission regarding the number of allowed uses, the types of allowed uses, and also the way that information was presented. So between the October 8th meeting and the November 19th meeting, the applicant proposed some alternative language to clarify the allowed uses and also put those limitations on the floor area to address specific concerns of the Planning Commission. And then at the November 19th Planning Commission, they did recommend approval unanimously of the proposal, subject to staff conditions, but also subject to an additional condition limiting the hours of operation, essentially requesting that they close the businesses by 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and by 12 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. I've written that out here, and I'll just walk you through the staff conditions real quick. Those are the first three. The first is just a very specific list of the allowed uses, tying them to what's allowed in the neighborhood shopping district, along with the 11 other allowed uses within the local commercial zoning district. There are more than 12 other allowed uses in the general commercial zoning district. But in response to concerns about the neighbor effects on the neighborhood, the applicant has specifically, disallowed things like gas stations, drive-throughs, anything that's a high driver of traffic. All of those are eliminated from the allowed use list. The second condition is tying them to their existing site plan. In practice, this means that if they ever wanted to redevelop, build new buildings, tear down what's there and do something new, it would automatically come back before you guys for review. They'd have to modify this zoning case. Properties that are just generally under any zoning district without conditions are allowed to redevelop without special permission. So, this would require that any redevelopment come back before you. The third condition just requires the applicant to complete these parking lot improvements. Staff feels that those parking lot improvements are really important to improving the aesthetics of the area and also bringing it into compliance with our current parking lot landscaping code requirements. And then the fourth condition, which is recommended by the Planning Commission, limits the hours again from, they have to be closed from 12 to 6 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, and 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. Staff's recommendation is not to limit the hours of operation. We do recommend the first three conditions, but we feel that the limitation on hours of operation, the reason for that is concerns over things like noise and disruptions from music and people outside yelling. The Chapter 18, which is a noise ordinance, already adequately, bans that type of disturbance between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And we find that to be a lot more readily enforceable in practicality for the police department, which would be the one to go out to respond to those types of complaints. The noise ordinance is blanket and it's applicable to every property. It's just not practical in the field for officers to be referencing zoning conditions that aren't readily accessible, unless they want to go through our zoning map on their phones or something of that nature. So we do feel that the noise ordinance is adequate to address those concerns about noise, which, is the main sort of nuisance that would be caused by these, types of commercial projects going on. So overall, we are recommending approval. And if you have any other questions related to the request, I'd be happy to address them later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there a presentation by the applicant or no?
Yes, the applicant
Okay.
does have some slides.
Dear, bless your heart. You all right? Laurel David with the Galloway Law Group, 4062 Peachtree Road. Madeline's been done a great job summarizing everything I could have possibly said. So I'm not going to repeat anything she has said. There is just one thing I do want to point out. I know there was a comment and public comment about restricting uses. I think what gets lost is that, as Madeline pointed out, there are a lot of uses that are allowed by right in C1, which we have effectively banned because we've only added 11 uses to the new site. So there are in fact 20 uses that would have been allowed by C1, which we are effectively banning. And as she mentioned, really the whole motivation was to try and find an anchor tenant for the 2480 big box property. They've had, as you probably know, several groceries fail there. They are one of the largest grocery developers in Southeast United States, and yet they have not been able to find one to take their place. When this opportunity came up for indoor pickleball, which I will say I think will be the envy of Metro Atlanta because with all the fights of outdoor pickleball noises that other jurisdictions are having. When this opportunity came up, we found that obviously indoor pickleball didn't fit into any of the definitions of the current code, and really the closest thing that came to it was indoor spectator sport. And that is not allowed in neighborhood shopping. So knowing that going to C1 may create some angst about allowing other uses, that's why we, as I said, had took essentially 20 of those uses out. I do want to, and I think I'm sharing my screen. I can't see the monitor. This is just a rendering example that was provided by one of the indoor entertainment folks that are looking at the property. Just to give you an idea that it's going to be sort of high caliber. It's not going to be just a room full of pinball and slot machines. And they'll be actually spending quite a lot of money on upgrading this building, which we think will enhance the rest of the retail center and rejuvenize the center, the shopping center overall. Thank you for that. And if you have any questions, obviously, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay, you're gonna.
Thank you very much. We will now open the public hearing. During the public hearing, the community will have a chance to speak either in favor of or opposition to this rezoning. Each side will have a total of 10 minutes. So we will start with those that would like to speak in favor of the rezoning.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Martinez. I live at 5521 North Peachtree, which is about 5 homes down North Peachtree from this development. And, you know, we've been in the neighborhood for 9 years. Hard to believe, y'all. It's been amazing. And so we watched this turn from Sprouts to Lidl, and now it's kind of transient population hanging out there in the evenings. And so I really just commend the developer for taking initiative and engaging the neighborhood in a meaningful way. I mean, the easy thing would be here to just lease it to a Goodwill or a self-storage facility or something like that and just kind of call it a day. And they've really tried to kind of do something purposeful here in a way that enhances the surroundings. So I'm in full support of this rezoning with a couple of key caveats. One is I'd love to see those sidewalks connect from Mount Vernon into the development. the developer's done a fantastic job of allowing us to use that parking lot for bus service for my daughter's school. But it would be really nice to be able to kind of walk across the sidewalk and then also walk along the front of the big box to the shops, because right now you have to walk through the parking lot and over. Hopefully that's a minor nit. The other thing I'd say is if they're going to retrofit any kind of lighting, that it's compliant with the new Dunwoody ordinance that requires 3000 Kelvin LED warm white. It's for dark sky compliance, and it will also be a good neighbor to us in the single family community adjacent to it. Hopefully there's no changes to the proposed sign code. I understand that right now the sign code requires no face lit letters. We'd want to keep that. And then one other comment is just with the breezeway that's there, if there's a plan to sort of lock that after hours or provide camera surveillance, we would be in support of that. And I, speak on behalf of several residents in the Kingsley neighborhood. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
Hello again, Jason Metzger, 5475 Oxford Chase Way. So I'm about half mile from that shopping center as well. And I am definitely in favor of the rezoning. I think it's great. One of the things I love about Dunwoody is kind of the dispersed shopping center thing where, there's the shopping center there, there's another, the village area, instead of everything being in, one centralized area, and then, a bunch of big residential, and you got to drive everywhere to get anywhere. So I definitely support, something that will bring, activity and community back to that location. And I just want to, I think, the staff recommendations I agree with. I don't know that a noise, a time restriction is workable in reality. And then also, to the question that was raised earlier about parking, I think, when you look at that area, there's that shopping center, but then there's the two on either side of it. So, in my view, you've got plenty of parking, and plus being there kind of within the neighborhood, hopefully a lot of people will be able to walk or bike to that location on the developing trail network. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? You're welcome to come up and speak.
Hi, my name is Susan Newman. I've been in Dunwoody area for 21 years. And I'm probably coming into late into the game. I'll try to make this really quick. But I've lived in there for 21 years, and I saw it when it was a Harris Teeter, then an Ace, then it became a Sprouts, and no, not Sprout. Was it Sprouts? Thank you. Then Lidl. And when Lidl came out, I thought, what are they thinking? And the rumor mill was in the area that Kroger owned the shopping center. And so I guess that's another rumor, but that's what we heard forever. So we just kind of kept waiting, so I was gonna go there next. And then it kind of sparked my attention when back in, I guess, a few months ago in the Dunwoody Crier, there was this whole big article about the tenant wanted to come in and maybe bring a shelter in. Tenants around me kept telling me, because I would keep saying, why is the area so vacant? And it's all over Dunwoody, but it affects me because it's a half mile to my house. It's a real eyesore. And all the tenants said, well, we've heard there's gonna be a police station, where's gonna be this? Maybe these are all rumors, but I just really got the written up article back in October when it was in the Dunwoody Crier, all those rumors. And I feel like it's too soon to vote on a yes or no, because people like me have just come in late in the game. Maybe y'all been on this for a while, but I'm looking through the list. I had something totally written different to say tonight, and this is impromptu. But when I saw maybe nightclub or lounge or a liquor store where there's one already across the street, I think we need to reevaluate what can really be allowed in there. I'm fine with rezoning, but I think you need to really look at that yellow list to make sure you're allowing the right things in there, because it's very much a family area. And when I saw a school, there's schools all around the area. That's going to make more traffic than a drive-through restaurant would make. So that didn't quite make sense to me when she said that. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. We'll open up for questions and comments from the council. John?
Thank you. I have a couple questions regarding some of the uses. I guess if I could go to Laurel or the applicant. I'm really concerned about the animal care boarding, doggy daycare. You know, we might have had some issues here in the city with barking and noise and things of that nature. You're adding the animal care boarding. Explain it to me, why that? You got the other ones, you have animal grooming and animal hospital veterinary. I think I'm okay with both of those. It's the boarding aspect of it. Tell me what you're expecting. Is there outside boarding? Is there outside care? Where are you walking the dogs? Tell me how it's going to work, because I'm worried about all the residents around there. That's the one issue I'm concerned of. Help me understand what you're thinking.
Sure. So when we were going through the list, I have to say it was kind of hard because we presented to you what Branch wants to do to the property. There's no other plans to make any other changes right now. And quite frankly, to your point, if there was some, large doggy daycare thing, it would most likely change the site plan, in which case they would most likely need to come back. But what we found was that we needed to anticipate like almost all these hypotheticals. And one of them is that the veterinary actually boards animals. Now they're sick and they're being treated, but it is animal boarding. And that's why we included it in the permitted lists.
All right, so you're saying that you need the boarding aspect in order for the veterinary, in order to keep an animal overnight?
Yeah, but it's multiple nights in some cases. So it does qualify. And, I spent a lot of time in the definitions trying to make sure we had all our bases covered.
So is there any outdoor spaces related to this?
No.
Okay, and how much space are you anticipating the veterinary boarding taking place? I mean,
It's already there.
It's already there. I'm just trying to.
Yeah. So
I want to make sure that we limit any future growth or somebody coming in the future.
Sure.
I want to limit it to what's already there. I want to limit it to I want to make sure there's no unintended consequences of this rezoning 3 years from now, having a boarding service come in and upset the community like another one has in the past. How can you help me? Is there any changes that could be modified?
I had the exact same thought, and I was looking at the 11th or whatever, where the sports recreation has to be indoor, and my suggestion would be just the boarding has to be indoors like it already exists right now.
Again, that's the type of thing, I'm looking for some modification to the
indoor.
zoning, because again, I'm not comfortable with the boarding, because again, I'm just worried down in the future, the unintended consequences.
Yeah, we're happy to, sorry, Jack Hewlett with Branch Properties, everybody. We're happy to limit it to indoor. And as I said, if anything was going to be outdoor, it would probably prompt a site plan change anyway, so.
All right, great, thank you. Well,
all creatures are.
okay, there was a couple questions regarding Crema. I was looking at the maps or the drawings. There's going to be no change in the parking. There's shared parking, but one of the maps showed a chain link fence. I was confused, as there's nothing going to change in the parking. The parking sharing that's happening now. You're not going to put up anything to block the back entrance of Crema, all right?
No, we're not. There's gonna be no fence there, and quite frankly, Crema doesn't have the right to park on our property. And we're just being good neighbors because it is a community spot there and allowing them to park on the side. There is a lot of trash that gets left there that we have to clean up and take care of. But we do allow them to park on our property, although there isn't an official agreement back and forth. Between a reciprocal easement agreement between the two of us, but we will continue to allow them.
Okay, well, thank you for that, for being a good neighbor, and it was important to some of the community members that raised that. Time limits, I'm trying to wrap my head around time limits. You got a workout facilities, people work out. Dunwoody Baptist down the street here, they open at 5:30 in the morning. People work out early in the morning, so your hours have to be relatively early in the morning. to a certain extent. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. You want no hours? What's the request of the applicant?
So, first off, I want to make it clear that the, hours is talking about the building itself, not any of the other uses in the shopping center. And it's specific in the condition that it is the 2480 building, which is, and it is a little confusing because they're 3 parcels, but it's actually really two properties. Because they've cut the, into 2 separate parcel numbers, the main building with the 2-story retail section.
And just to confirm, the 2480 is the former Lidl and Hollywood Feed.
Correct.
Okay.
I hope I got that number right. Anyway. So the hours are specifically for that building. What the purpose was when we had the initial discussions, with the neighborhood and with planning commission was that there was worry about noise late at night. And specifically, generated by people who are congregating outside. Now, we know there's a noise ordinance already, that limits noise, all over, everywhere to specific levels. But that was an attempt to try and appease their concerns that there wouldn't be late night disturbances in the parking lot.
Okay, again, I was trying to wrap my head around the hours. For example, O'Brien's was there. I'm not sure what the hours of O'Brien's was there previously, but they were open probably till midnight. I think I was there New Year's Eve once. It was past midnight.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
they were open.
But
Well, they actually were open until 2 in the morning.
right,
And
again,
here's-
I'm just trying to wrap my head
Never
around
been
what
any
you're asking
problems.
for and what we're going to be allowing.
Yeah, there's never been any problems there with, the existing businesses and, nor, Kroger Center across the street has no hour limitations either.
Okay. Happy to hear more from my fellow council members. Appreciate the answers. Thank you very much. Appreciate the willingness to modify the condition on the boarding to make sure that it's only indoor. So staff is making a note of that. So thank you.
No problem.
Just while we're talking about the hours of operation, Richard, can you come, because is the hours of operation, I know that was something that the developer was willing to do, but in the final ordinance, the staff recommendation was not to have that, and it doesn't appear in the final ordinance. Is that correct? So we're not going to have, there's not going to be a limit on the hours of operation as it's written?
So it was the recommendation by planning commission, but she showed 2. The planning commission recommendation and our recommendation. Our recommendation does not include a limit on hours.
Because the final ordinance that I read did not have that 4th condition in there. So I just want to confirm. So you're presenting both in
Correct.
leaving it to our discretion. Okay. Joe?
Thanks. So when I first met, pre-applicant, we had, the applicant had meetings, and I was fortunate enough to sit down and hear in office, and I believe it was with Richard or Paul on staff. Of course, I walk in not knowing anything, and then all of a sudden I'm going to absorb what's being proposed. So the first thing I asked for was the retrofitting of pedestrian access to the interior of the property. I see some movement on that, and also asked about greens, landscaping, greenery, greening it physically to make it pleasant, shade, etc. So I do see some movement on that, but if you look at the plan site improvements, Exhibit B, I would like to have I don't want to say a redo, but I'd like to see it. What are we really looking at? Making that I'm walking there with my family, or we're on bikes and we're from Mount Vernon, from Dunwoody Club Drive. How are we accessing that together and riding to that? And how are we going to park right in front of the current empty Lidl? And how does that look? I don't see that when I'm looking at Exhibit B. And is it going to be shaded? Is it comfortable, convenient? So I'd really like to see that. How are we moving in and accessing that without being in a car, accessing that interior, right? Also the frontage of the existing Lidl, again, there's no sidewalk in front of it. There's no pedestrian facility in front of it. There's nothing there. Look, I know the Kroger across the way. I can hardly, well, by the way, and I'd like staff to look for conditions. First of all, I'd like to have a dedicated double wide sidewalk like you have on Main Street downtown, You could put some trees on there and some shrubs and stuff, just make it look like a main street, whatever you want to do on that, but let's see what that is. I don't see any improvement on that at all. On that part, and just make that pedestrianized. Now, also though, what I was gonna say is, if you go over to the Kroger, I don't know how that's coded or zoned, but guess what they do to their covered walking space? They cram it with stuff and they fill it with trees and everything else, so you can't actually use it. You can't get in there in a wheelchair, you can't walk past there. It's not usable. So A, I'd like to see this improved. B, if it needs to be a condition that it'll be maintained clear so that people can walk and use it, that would be wonderful. So again, more in that exhibit B, some landscaping. Are we going to put landscaping along Mount Vernon? Make it look nice, yada, yada. So that's the exhibit B, landscaping. Please look at that. The second part is the, back to the usage on the maximum of 5,000 square foot floor area. Now, I would ask staff, because I just wanted to see where that number comes from. How is that maximum derived? Is that a formula? Because I know nothing that, if I just said maximum of on both of those uses, why is that? And how do we get to that number?
That was actually a number that was proposed by the applicant. It's a number that they were comfortable with in terms of the size. And so, we've gone along with that. But in terms of like how we administrate that, whenever someone applies for a business license, they submit a floor plan, and we would do that based on the gross floor area.
Okay. I'm a little spatially challenged. What does 5,000 square feet look like? I mean, is it a Starbucks? Is it this room? Like, if the Lidl is 30,000 square feet, so that's 6. I mean, so can somebody help me visualize what 5,000 square feet looks? Culinary dropout. Thank you. Done.
Actually, and the number is a couple of the small sort of average sized bays. That's so rather than having just one of them, which wouldn't be a school, but 2 of them could be some sort of after school training or GRE tutoring or something like that.
So yeah, I didn't know it was the applicant driving that, because I don't like arbitrary. I like to have something based on reality that's like, well, we put this in here because of whatever reason, but I'm fine with that if that's the applicant level. The current use, I'll just say, this is not with the zoning, but this might be more for code compliance and maybe a Richard question. On Jet Ferry, well, you talk about the boarding use and the animal care. And, along Jet Ferry, a few years ago, there was some dying trees. And even before on council, I lived there, and I was fortunate enough because the citizens here, I had input, and there were some dying trees, and the city had some new trees put in. Was that put in by the property owner, or was that put in by the city? And that's part A. Part B is, you'll see one tree is really nice and healthy, and it's growing up probably 30 plus feet. It's nice and filled out. It's further toward Dunwoody Club. And then the other tree is barely alive, and it's got artificial grass because the people take the dogs out there and they're doing the number 1 and number 2. They're right there on the artificial grass. I walk by and I see, I'll say it, number 2 in the summertime. It's been sitting there for a couple of days, and it's not very pleasant. And I have to call code compliance. So I don't know if that's going to be a condition or not. If there's more dogs there, they're going to need places to run and stuff. But what happened today, and how did we do that? And how is it maintained, and what would happen if we went forward?
So it was the developer that put those trees in, and our request from you, the comment that you made. As far as the dog business, I'll turn it over to the gentleman to address that.
I will say, I see the vet employees picking up the dog business as probably random pedestrians not picking up their own dog's business.
I mean, I live 500 feet away from the place. I go there all the time. I walk to Crema, so don't have to park there. Okay, and I think so. I appreciate the taking the C1 and subtracting, and this is what we're going for. I'm fine with that for me, and I Back to Richard or staff, do we have any other business operating hours that we currently limit specified by location? Or is it just in our code let's just make sure we know this business operating hours model citywide. Can we just talk to me in general about that?
And generally in our code, the way we control the hours of operation for businesses, the main thing is for anyone selling alcohol, that in our code, we do specifically control the hours for the days that people sell alcohol, the times, and that's the main. But in terms of our zoning code, we don't have limits on hours of operation. Sometimes for things that are specifically like a special land use permit, a special land use permit specifically lends itself to controls on hours of operation. But for general rezonings where there's such a wide variety of uses, it's not something that's generally common.
There are conditions of zoning on the old Walmart, which is no longer with us. They had limited hours on their truck deliveries.
Okay, thanks. Last two things, as spoken during the public hearing portion, I would appreciate if there were retrofitting of the lighting, that it would be the dark sky compliant. That would follow if they were doing a retro. I see in a nodding, yes, it would. All right, great. If you keep that breezeway, I like the idea of locking that breezeway after hours. If you're going to be redoing this facility, I think that seems reasonable to public access, but I'm good. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the presentation. And I really look forward to getting this place activated because I think it's going to help property values and the quality of life of the folks that live in Dunwoody. Thank you.
Matt, if I could ask you to come up and put up what's allowed already in the neighborhood shopping district. And then that one slide, I couldn't find it I didn't in agenda. It was a very good one. I would just like to have more eyeballs on it so we can see what is already allowed versus what's being added. So the wine, the microbrewery, the distillery, those are already allowed and already currently permitted in the neighborhood shopping district. That's kind of what I thought. And the health club. Okay. So I kind of want to, then my next question is going to be on the changes in the parking. So maybe leave that up so eyeballs can look at it, but I know they're adding the green space and they're restriping. Is that it? Am I missing something?
Yeah, it's essentially restriping and adding the landscape islands to allow for more trees to be planted. Currently, I counted the parking spaces earlier. It's 325 currently. I believe the newly proposed would be 321, just because they're removing some spaces that currently encroach into our right of way.
And I noticed on the Exhibit B that we did have, there was kind of a pedestrian walkway kind of thing. So I would just encourage the applicant, like, you know, if you truly want to make this a family venue, make it more family friendly with walkability and better targets for small children to land on. Then my next question is, and I understand that this is just allowing more uses in the current existing buildings. Let's say that something happens and the current existing buildings need to go away. Can you walk me through, is it going to be, does the underlying zoning of what we're doing now go with it and we would just have to approve a new plan? Or does it start afresh? Does it go back to neighborhood? So like what happens if they want to tear a building down?
Yeah, essentially anything that would be a major modification would trigger essentially another rezoning. And so they would have to come to you with a site plan, typically is how we handle these types of things in Dunwoody. They would have to come forward with a site plan, and then they would essentially go through the same public process, go through the public hearings with the Planning Commission and the City Council. Unless in the future we go through what we did in the Dunwoody Village, where we come up with a form-based code. That would be a larger project, and that would be.
So what is defined as a major change? I mean, if the Chase Bank went away, is that a major, like what triggers the majorness?
So yeah, anytime you're altering the footprint, anytime you're wanting to build something new, those are the types of triggers. Those are the main triggers. The uses that are allowed by this allowed use table, they can sort of plug those into the existing footprint however they want. But if you're adding square footage, it's going to trigger, it's going to be considered a major amendment. The major amendments are listed out in the code, and I can specifically pull that up from the code, but.
And then my next question is actually for the applicant. And I just want to make sure that it's your chance to say it in public. Your intent is to put in an indoor pickleball facility. Is that?
Hi, Brett Horowitz with Branch Properties. Our intent is a myriad of uses, including pickleball, that are looking at the space. It's indoor family entertainment, which would include bowling, video games, indoor playground for children, along with pickleball users who are also looking at the vacancy right now. And under the current zoning, those uses would be allowed as we're requesting. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I had one more question. It left. So
We can,
I might come.
we can come back to you. Catherine?
Hi, can we, about the, parking, it's Crema's parking there and you're allowing them to park based on no written agreement. I'm gonna suggest you put a written agreement. I mean, I think it's important that they have they're parking there because they're actually pointing there. You can go around and park on the side.
Yeah, we just kind of have a handshake agreement allowing them right now, but yes, so I agree. It would be best if we had a written agreement, but we don't.
Okay, and you have the Hollywood feed in there, and that's gonna stay?
No, the Hollywood feed is vacant right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Okay, all right, so that'll be redone. Okay, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
I remembered. It was about the noise. And Madeline, I'm always a proponent of making sure that whatever we put on the books is enforceable. So if you're saying that our noise ordinance is where you are comfortable with the noise and the gatherings and whatever being enforceable, and our police, I think you made a great point that it's much easier for the police officer who's responding to something at 11, 12 o'clock at night can point to that versus something that is in a zoning condition. So as long as you feel that that's enforceable and covers everything, then I'm comfortable with that as well.
I want to revisit, I guess, the condition number 4 that the planning commission added. And that was unanimous addition. Could you just give me a 1-minute synopsis of their discussion that led to this? I'm just curious about why they put this in there and kind of their thought process.
Yeah, so from my experience at the meeting, there was a lot of comment from the public regarding concerns over noise. The Planning Commission took that very seriously, and in their discussions regarding the best way to control that, limitations on hours of operation was the conclusion, that they came to. They did make a motion first to just recommend it according to staff conditions, but then there was another amendment where the other planning commissioner wanted to add the hours of operation. So that first motion to approve to staff's conditions failed, and then their next motion to include the hours, limitations on hours of operation, that's the one that eventually passed.
I guess my follow-up is maybe for the applicant, which is, I have a sense for your feeling on this, but if you could just let me know your thoughts on that condition. If you feel it's too restrictive, if it's something you can live with.
We're amenable to the condition. I mean, we discussed it at length, not only with members of the audience, but also with the planning commission. I will say that I think it, potentially conflicts with the noise ordinance. I think what the noise ordinance has is more restrictive. But I think if it gives everybody the comfort that they need in order to approve the rezoning, then Branch is willing to abide by the condition.
Thank you. I was just curious, just the background. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments?
No, I appreciate the discussion on.
I'm sorry, could you hold for just a second? We can't hear you in here.
Oh, wait, hold on, you can't see me. Hold on one second.
Can you
Mayor
hear?
Darts, I'm sorry, we
now?
can't hear your comments at the
hear
moment.
me?
Could you, we're gonna see if we can
Okay.
correct
Hold
that.
on. Can you hear me now, Tom, or no? Nope.
IT, can we check the volume on, for Mayor Deutsch, put it up?
Tom, can you hear me now?
A little bit better, but still
Okay.
pretty low.
I don't really have anything to add.
There we go. We got you. We got you now.
Okay, I don't really have much to add. I appreciate the discussion on the hours. My concern is actually that if we ever get back to having 24-hour pharmacies, which the community actually wants, that it restricts the CVS from doing that. And, I'd like y'all to take a deeper look at that. And I think I'm a realist. I'm sometimes a pessimist, but I'm mostly a realist. And even in perimeter, our businesses we have like 2 places that are busy at 11 o'clock at night on a weekend, maybe midnight. So I'm not as concerned that whatever we put here is going to be rocking and rolling at midnight regularly. I just know we're looking for something that will attract people in, but I'm well aware of the dynamics of our community. But I appreciate the back and forth between the community and the developer to get us to a list that people are comfortable with. And that's it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mayor Deutsch. Any other comments?
Richard, when we met, we talked about just enhanced bike parking as well. Is that going to be in there?
Yeah, it's in the code, so we'll require it.
Okay, thank you. This is a first read, so we will see this again. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Stacy, second by Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll now move on to the business items. Discovered Dunwoody. Ray, make your way up and we'll just wait. If you could hold your presentation until the room clears that way.
Do I need,
Um,
Sharon, do I
Mayor
need
Pro
to
Tem, may I make a motion to
put it
take a
online?
quick 2-minute break? 2-minute break? We've been here for now. Is that okay? Amenable to
Okay, yeah.
anybody?
Is it? Yeah, adjourn for 2 minutes? Did you
Just 2 minutes.
We'll solve a quorum if you leave.
Yeah, when 2 minutes and then when he's ready, we'll go. Is that amenable?
Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you can call a recess for 5 minutes if you'd like without a motion.
Okay, we'll call recess for 2 minutes, please.
Did you give it to somebody?
Yeah, I sent it to Sharon.
Okay.
Of course, that we're getting we should. It's put off the internet. Can we do it? Can we get to a browser? Okay. So
Folder now. This one, right? Right. Is this what you were looking for?
That's it.
I'll
You
make
can,
it.
you make it on the full screen.
Let me
Perfect.
go present it.
So it's that's that process.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're ready to reconvene. We've addressed all of our technical and other issues.
Every now and, I love to complicate things, so just me. So I thank you for the opportunity to present the budget. I'm going to be as brief as I can. I know my reputation has preceded me. It's been shared. Going to go through afterwards. I'm going to have Mike Jackson and Mark Galvin be with me so we can answer any questions. So, okay. There we go. So always our vision is to help drive economic development. We want to convey the heart, soul, and energy of Dunwoody, be the source of information, and improve the quality of life of Dunwoody. So I'm going to go through historically, we have more hotel rooms, the supply coming in the market next year. This shows you a history of those rooms, shows you a history of where we are with room nights, room revenue from our hotels, shows our occupancy growth, RevPAR growth, and room demand growth. We're fourth throughout out of 14 Metro Atlanta submarkets. We were first in all those markets last year. We were second in 22. We're getting more than our fair share in the perimeter area, 100 being the fair share. In occupancy, RevPAR, we're at 146.6. We're the envy of a lot of destinations. You look at weekday versus weekend. On the weekday through September, I think we're at 67% occupancy on weekday. We're at 71.8% occupancy on weekends. So we're still not satisfied. MJ and Treasurer's doing a great job from a sales strategy standpoint. We're going to have about 116,000 group room nights. We had just under 114 last year. His focus lets you kind of look at this afterwards. From a marketing standpoint, we have a great marketing team. Our website monthly sessions have been, substantially higher than previous. Community engagement, this is something we're proud of. We had 51 community engagement initiatives last year. We'll talk about those. Our book direct clicks it's continued to grow up. Our website sessions and social media engagements are continuing to grow. Here's a list of just some of the community engagement activities that we're involved in. We're focused on continuing doing this, throughout 2025. Shows you our marketing plan always is to increase hotel bookings. More importantly, increase tax revenue, both for Discover Dunwoody and for the city. And here's our proposed budget. Our proposed budget is tax revenue of $2,464,000 in total tax revenue. That's 2.7% above the 2024 forecast as of the end of September. Occupancy, just under 63%. There's more supply coming into the market, so that affects occupancy. This is where we're at in all the different line items. 2.7% growth in revenue, or 3.6% in total revenue, and that's through investment and some other earnings. Employee personnel, we propose a 9.8% increase. Total admin budget, lowering that by 3.2%. Marketing taking that up 3.3%, and then sales taking that up 1.3%. So that's where you look at. Our goal is to have a net operating income of $1,210,000. We're trying to make sure we're investing all of our dollars wisely. The big part of this, as we look, from a department budget standpoint, it's kind of spread across. 36% is employee and personnel, 25% is marketing, 22% is admin, and then 16.4% of this total budget is sales. This is where we, kind of split, across in the personnel portion. From an admin standpoint, the biggest portion of the admin budget is platforms. We're updating our website in 2025. We've kind of taken that as far as we can. So a big investment the first 6 months, launching our new website in the summer is a key focus with what we're doing. From the marketing standpoint, 77% of the marketing budget is advertising, digital, social media, promoting not only our hotels, the visitors, but our restaurants. I know you all see a lot of the social media that we're doing. From a sales standpoint, 37% of the sales budget is the incentive and group rebate program to help our hotels close business when they may be considering Nashville or the airport district. Try to get them making sure that they're budgeting here. Our hotels have taken advantage of that pretty dramatically. So this just shows the budget for each quarter. It also shows we have a stretch revenue goal. Honestly, I would be disappointed if we did not blow the revenue budget away. I think we're very well positioned to do that. Just go through each of the quarters so you can look. You can also see our stretch revenue goals. So that's the budget as we proposed. 3 minutes. So Wanted to open it up for any questions, get Mark and MJ here.
Thank you, Ray. Questions or comments from the council? Catherine?
Hello, thank you for that presentation. You're gonna have a stretch, well, you're gonna have an increase of 2.7 because of the extra rooms?
Well, yeah, that has part of it to do with it. With the additional rooms, average rate has been going down throughout Metro Atlanta. So less, the average room rate is going down. We will book more rooms. It is very conservative. We've got over 50,000 more room night opportunities in Dunwoody. Our focus is to limit the cannibalization from our other hotels. So we have marketing strategies to shift business because it doesn't do us any good if we help the Element Hotel, but they're just taking business away from the other Dunwoody hotels. So we're very cognizant about that strategy.
Right, and then your increases are, I mean, 1% or whatever it is, for promotion and sales. You know, it's down for admin. These are based on your basic level of increase and
Yeah.
not your surpassing levels.
No, so yeah, this is based upon us looking at each line item and see where can we be more efficient. We're putting more responsibilities on our marketing team to do more of the advertising in-house. So that's where we look at is, trying to make sure that we're have a positive NOI, but we're very diligent in trying to manage these individual department line items.
Who are 1, 2, and 3?
Okay, tell me one.
The first two, the first 3 ahead of us in sales. Do you know?
Oh, and
They don't count.
I can't say that. Now Sandy Springs is doing well as well. The whole entire perimeter area has done extremely well in 2024. Typically Dunwoody is third in occupancy, only behind Buckhead and the Central Business District and the Airport District. We're third only behind the Central Business District and Buckhead and Ray.
Okay.
So then we're third in RevPAR, but we're continuing to grow.
Well, thanks for a good report, and I look forward to a great 2025.
Thank you.
Stacy?
I was curious, couple things. So the occupancy forecast is 62.9% for 2025, but we're at 60, 67 and 71. Does additional rooms make that much difference? Like, because that's quite a bit of a dip.
It does. And
Okay.
again, and quite honestly, I think this is conservative. I'd rather be as conservative as we can and manage the expenses accordingly and then grow from there. The perimeter area as a whole, the industry is forecasting this type of a decrease in occupancy for the perimeter area as a whole. So that's one of the reasons why I would want it to be very conservative. But yeah, so we've got about 50, I think it's close to 58,000 more room nights this year than we had last year.
I know the Crown Plaza Ravinia has conference space, but that's pretty much the only hotel that has any large amount of conference space. How much does that affect our weekday? Because that's, since that's the lower one, I mean, are people coming to conferences? Like, is it a weakness for our hotel market to not have a conference center?
Well, if we had a conference center with a hotel attached to it, yeah, we could, book more group business. pushing about maybe 125,000 group room nights is pretty much operating at our optimal right now. A conference center without meeting space, we're just going to push business to the lower rated hotels outside of Dunwoody.
And then I know you guys have done an amazing job of meshing together with the assembly and working with that. What does that look like for 2025? Is more stuff coming online there? And can we look forward to?
Yeah. So currently there's a long-term soap opera being filmed at Assembly, staying, they've booked one of our hotels to host some of their folks there. They're anticipating starting in March to have high occupancy at Assembly. So we expect to generate more room nights, starting the end of the first quarter.
And I just want to say thank you for the report. I know that when we get a report from Discover Dunwoody, it's going to have lots of color and lots of details.
Rob?
Thank you. Everything looks good. I just have kind of a general interest question, which is, are there any cool conferences coming to town that you can share? I know at one point we were trying to win a balloon animal conference a couple years ago. So just anything kind of fun you can share that we might be looking forward to?
There's always something happening in Dunwoody, so it depends on what you like. From flower shows to comedy acts. There's just so many things that are happening. So just look at our website. Just follow us. If you're not already, follow us on social media.
Hey, thanks Ray and team for what you guys do. Do you, it's about revenue, it's matching. Richard Plato, does this match our revenue forecast? Is this joined? So I think it's, the marriage. If I look at funds, right? I know there's a split, and you guys, your report is very tactical and specific, and I want to kind of elevate it for the taxpayers that might be seeing this and understanding where this money's coming from and how it gets dispersed. So I don't know if this should be a retreat item or maybe as a footnote in next year's report, you kind of put down as an appendice, this is a hotel motel tax, and this is the total pie, and the city is this much, and the CVB, whatever, just DMO gets this much. And then, by the way, this is authorized by Georgia Code, blah, blah, blah. And then what also would help is a refresher, because I just don't have anything else to do, is the list of funds that, the list of activities that you guys can do with this,
Okay.
right? I mean, I know the in-state, we know the purpose, but like, for example, could you guys go out and pay for holiday lighting on a lamppost with your funds if you had extra money?
If we can do it in a way that's destination marketing, we can do that. And we have done that, where we've invested as a sponsor for various events where we've, done the banner.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate your sponsorship of directing these public taxpayer funds back in the community. And that's really a win-win. I really am super appreciative of that support that you and your team do. Speaking of that, those community engagement activities, what bucket, does it come out of a specific bucket in your budget? Or is it, what piece of the pie is when you go out to say, okay, we're going to fund or whatever? Yeah, does it come out of marketing or sales or the department? How does that allocate?
It really depends on what it is. So I think it's safe to say it comes out of marketing, admin. Probably most of it is coming out of marketing, but a lot of it is some of it is coming out of the admin budget. Some of it is coming out of sales. So it's not one thing specific. There's a lot of overlap with some of the accounting codes. And I know we've worked very closely with Richard to make sure that we're trying to manage the codes as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And then to maybe to re-educate or just to share online, 8% lodging tax from our hotels. So every hotel will collect 8% lodging tax. Discover Dunwoody receives 3.5%. The city receives 4.5% of that. The budget, I budget at 3% because we're getting about 12 to 13% of our room nights are from federal government that are not paying taxes. So that's
Okay.
why I budget at 3% versus 3.5%, because it's more realistic. So, and that has increased probably 2.5 times since the pandemic.
Mhm. So this is the budget, just like when we do our budget cycle. My follow-up question is, what are balances? Do you have any cash funds sitting in, do you have a reserve? Do you have balances? Is that available for public knowledge or information accessible? Is it a rolling balance? Do you think you're just going to zero on these things? If that could be presented or
Yes,
provided?
yeah, so we do, I did not include that. We
Sure.
do have reserve funds, through various CDs, through Charles Schwab, through T-bills that Bill Grant, who is our finance chair of the board, kind of manages that, which he's very aggressive at making sure the return is as strong as possible, which is one of the reasons why the total revenue is more than the tax revenue, because he's done such a good job of investing the reserve that we have.
I'd be curious to find out what your reserve is and if you have it. I mean, unlike us, where we have restricted and unrestricted funds, we have general funds, et cetera, things are, I'd be curious to know what is your, because we have a floor minimum of 4-month operating reserve. I don't know if you guys have that, but I'd be curious as a takeaway to know. You don't have to say it tonight.
Well,
but
and I know,
find
and
out.
we have it, I know Richard, saw Richard earlier. Here he is. In part of the monthly reports, I forget which one, but it breaks out all the reserve funds and where
Sure.
they're at. So that's
Okay.
part of the package.
Make sure you got enough to pay payroll.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Now this is a presentation. I don't see like a resolution or anything formal document. It is an action item now. So I guess this is back to council. So the city council's bound to approve this. Is that a correct statement? Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure that is. So your 2% more forecast for 2024, your payroll personnel is up 9.8%. I'm looking at the photos. I don't know your official head count. Do you have 7 people now? Are you going to increase your head count, or is it the same head count?
It's the same head count.
So is it
So
7?
we voted, yeah, so 7. We
Uh-huh.
have 1 part-time person that helps us with the database, but 7
Right.
full-time people.
So if you divide that number by 7, it's $128,000 per person average employee salary. I know that includes benefits and wages and stuff, so
Yeah.
it's pretty healthy. So just
It's in the middle of the pack for DMOs our size.
is it okay?
So, and yeah, the board, our board of directors approved to give most of the team the increase because we're having more expectations. And of course, the
Right.
healthcare and everything went up as
Sure,
well.
of course, yeah, you got to compete and hire good people and make sure they're trained and whatever. Absolutely. Where do you budget for travel and expenses? Where's that allocated? I don't see it as a line item.
Yeah, it's in each department has a travel and expense line item
Mhm. Okay.
in there. So we do budget for that with the individual, but
Yeah, I would be doing that as well. Okay. But thank you for what you guys doing. Thank you for your community support. You're very professional, you're active, your social media, your team, everything's positive. I see you guys out and about all the time. So thank you for you and your team and what you do. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, thank you, Ray, for, I'll just echo for Joe's last comments. Thank you for what you do. I think you all do a great job doing it. So thank you. Let me jump into a couple comments and questions. Stacy jumped on something. There's a hotel zone right there next to the MARTA station. It's called High Street. Are you talking to them? What's coming? Tell me what you're doing in order to facilitate a high street hotel with probably convention center. Anything? Is there any conversation? Are those conversations happening?
So, yeah, so we've had conversations. It's been a little while with the developers that has that hotel plan. The main thing is the the data report, the industry reports that I receive, that I've many times share with you, those are the things that the developers should look at to see this is an area that's worth investing in because of the growth area, how we're growing compared to everybody else. So,
All right.
so we are having those. We're not aggressively soliciting a new hotel, but we're constantly communicating to let them know what our growth is and how well we're doing within the market.
Well, again, you have a world-class facility in the sense of directly across the street from a MARTA station, which can tie directly into the civic center, the airport, the merchandise mart, and all those meeting spaces downtown. So those direct connections, you have a prime location for a big, beautiful hotel and for a convention center and space. That would be great if that conversation could be facilitated. Let me jump back into something Joe was getting into, your finances. You are a quasi-governmental agency, correct? You are coming to us for a budgetary approval. You're sort of part of the city of Dunwoody, but you're sort of separate, right? Is
Yeah,
that
so yeah, we are a 501c6 nonprofit organization that operates through a contract or charter with the city from years ago. So yeah, so we're a 501c6 nonprofit, but we kind of work with, unlike a lot of DMOs like us, we work directly with the city to be our accounting arm.
Well, and that's where my next question was. Are you, Richard, are they subject to our auditing? We have an auditor, we have internal auditor, external auditor. How close are we looking at their books? It sounds like there's monthly reports going back and forth. You're shaking your head. It sounds like we're in a good place. I'll just take for granted we're in a good place unless you want to come say it.
So yes, they are part of our financial statements that we issue every year. So our external auditors do audit the financial statements of Discover Dunwoody every year. And our internal auditor also has them on the rotation plan, so to speak. As a matter of fact, we just finished up a hotel motel tax audit last quarter.
Okay.
So yes.
Well, let's get back to the 503c6, whatever it was. You were a topic of conversation last month here at our city council meeting. We approved a new member to join your board. So congratulations to that person. The whole resolution said Convention and Visitors Bureau of Dunwoody. And then we're looking, I asked the question, what's their name? Is it Discover Dunwoody or what's their name?
Yeah.
Explain to me the name change, when it happened, how it happened, and were we ever notified, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it happened before I came on board, but yeah, the official name is Convention and Visitors Bureau of Dunwoody, Georgia, doing business as Discover Dunwoody. So I know that took place before the pandemic. So I've been here for more than 3 years. So I can get you the exact date that.
I was looking at are you listed or required to be listed on the Georgia Secretary of State website as a corporation? I was looking for you and couldn't find you. So if you could forward that to me, that would be great. Because I was searching every Discover Dunwoody convention. I see all the Convention and Visitors Bureaus for every other city and state and county and all within the state of Georgia. But I couldn't find y'all. So I didn't know your official name and I wanted to make sure I could find it.
And we are.
Yeah, we're definitely there. I'm Mark Alvin, the Vice President of Marketing. And yes, we're definitely there. We renewed that I want to say I think we did it for 3 or 4 years just last year. I can get you the exact name. It's a little tricky on the SOS website, but we'll get it for you.
Again, I searched all over. I just want to make sure that the city of Dunwoody officially knows what your name is, that we're using your name correctly in legal documents when we're doing things like that or this or anything else.
I know Sharon had reached out after that meeting and we discussed it. I sent her our bylaws, which indicates that.
All right. One final thing. And again, it comes through transparency. I went all over your website. I finally found where you list your meeting minutes and you're a year behind. I don't see any minutes for 2014, 2024 at all. The last one was in 2023. I'm seeing transparency for me. You need to step it up a little bit. You have legal requirements to do those types of things. I would hope you would
so
back it up a little bit.
I think by the end of this week, we will have everything up to date.
Again,
Yeah.
Ray, thank you. I appreciate what you do. I think you do a good job, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions?
I'm sorry. No, thank y'all very much for what you're doing. I appreciate the support you're showing, not just to the hotels, but the restaurants. Your presence at events makes a big difference. I'm hoping that we have a better year than anticipated, but I certainly understand both the impact of a new hotel and whatever in the world is happening with the economy. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Ray, I'll just close it out. Just echoing thank you to you and your team. You guys really do a tremendous job in marketing and promoting the city, generating excitement of the events and other things going on in the city. The numbers are really impressive, and I'm glad you included the 2018 and 2019 in here, because otherwise people would just, it's just a bounce back from COVID. But you can see that prior to COVID, there's really been a significant increase. So, and that doesn't happen by accident. So I appreciate the hard work of you and your team and everything you do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an action item.
Move to approve budget for the 2025 of the Discover Dunwoody. Does that work?
Moved by John, second by Rob. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a contract amendment for Peeler Road path design. Michael?
Okay, the agenda item before you tonight is a design contract amendment with Professional Design Partners to complete the design for the Peeler Road path between Winters Chapel and Happy Hollow Road. Going back to the city's first transportation plan in 2011, this segment of Peeler Road has always been viewed as an important bicycle connection to the eastern edge of Dunwoody, and even more so after the city adopted the Winters Chapel area study and began planning for a path on Winters Chapel Road. In the recently adopted Trail Master Plan, which there's a map of this shown here, this project on Peeler was a programmed project, number P16, and between Winters Chapel and Wynwood Hollow Park. The city's current SPLOST budget includes construction funding for this phase of the path. Work began on this project when the city council approved a design contract back in October of 2021. And then a concept was developed in early 2022 and presented for public comment. And at that time, the public comments were mostly expressed support for the project, the written comments we received. Later that year, the project was put on hold to await the completion of the Trail Master Plan. And then in June of 2023, the concept was presented to the city council, at which time we received direction to go back and talk to the neighborhood more about some of their concerns. We did that over the next several months into 2024. And then in May of 2024, we held a community meeting where we presented some revisions to the concept based on the feedback we had been hearing. And we received more written comments at that point, and the city responded to those comments in August of this year. The general concept that we've been working on is a path on the north side of the road. This, if you're looking east on Peeler Road, the reservoir is on your right, the linear park next to the reservoir, and then the path is proposed on the left side of the road or the north side of the road. Throughout the discussions on the project and the public input, there were a few primary concerns that we heard. One was stormwater management. We also heard concerns about privacy and loss of trees, and then also speeding and traffic on Peeler Road. So now I'm going to walk through the the concept with some of the enhancements we've added to try to address some of those concerns that we've heard. Let's zoom in a little bit here. So starting at the west end of the project in front of Wynwood Hollow Park at Lakeside Drive, throughout this section of the project where we've introduced some traffic calming elements. Here we have a pedestrian refuge island for a crosswalk at Lakeside Drive in front of the park. When we had the community meeting, we also presented a concept for a mini roundabout at this location, which would have had even more of a traffic calming effect. But the feedback we received on that was not as people seem to prefer the refuge island to the mini roundabout. To address privacy concerns, we've got by the way, the trail is shown in yellow here. The orange is the center line of Peeler Road, and the blue lines are the edges of the right of way. And so you can see between the trail and the right of way line, we're proposing a privacy fence. This is to address concerns about people being on the trail or on the roadway and being able to see into the backyards where on the properties where the yards sit lower than the trail. And then lastly, I'll point out here on the stormwater management aspect, currently all the rain that falls on the north side of Peeler Road runs off the road and into the shoulder and then down into those properties that sit below the road. And there's a few pipe systems there. So some of it ends up in the pipes, but a lot of it flows over the ground into the backyards of these properties. And what we're proposing with this project would be to collect all that water on the north side of the road and from the new path. And the dark blue lines show the new pipes that would be put in to collect that water. On this end of the project, a lot of it flows through these backyards, but next to the park and the cab easement. We're proposing to collect all that in the right of way and then pipe it around those properties into an existing system down through the DeKalb's easement that they have for their water lines that go to the reservoir. So that by collecting that water instead of letting it just flow off the right of way, that should reduce the flow of stormwater to those properties. Moving a little bit further east, again, we've introduced a splitter island in the roadway in front of the Four Oaks entrance. There is an existing right turn lane at the entrance there now. We've pulled that out, and we're proposing to relocate some utility boxes in that area, which allows us to move the path closer to further away from the residents in the neighborhood. It also allows us we had in the original concept a retaining wall to stay within the right of way there. By pulling the trail in a little bit closer to the road, we can eliminate that retaining wall, which will save cost and construction time. And then with the slope, instead of a wall there, we'll be able to replant more trees behind the path. In place of the turn lane, the splitter island we think will help to calm traffic, and since we're taking that right turn lane out. And you can see the fence continues throughout this section. We have another stormwater connection point towards the right side of the graphic there that connects into an existing stormwater pipe going through the neighborhood. And as you can see on this, all the path along this section is within the current right of way. Lastly, at the Winter's Chapel end, we really haven't changed anything on this end. It's pretty much as in the original concept. It gets into the more commercial area there. Along the way, we did some visualization of what this would look like. This is again looking east on Peeler Road. The slide on, or the picture on the left shows the existing condition out there. And you can see the houses over to the left that sit below the road. And then the picture on the right, or the artist rendering on the right, it shows the path, shows the privacy fence. And then they've drawn in some trees behind the fence that they're intended to show they're not at full maturity, but that would be, they're growing in, the fence would be there to provide the privacy until those trees mature. And when we developed these visuals originally, we were proposing a wooden privacy fence. In further discussions now, we're looking at a composite fence, which gives a little more finished look. This is another view looking back to the west, existing and proposed. Another question that was raised along the way is why not put the path on the south side of the road, on the reservoir side of the road? So when we looked at the different scenarios for providing good pedestrian and bicycle accommodations on the corridor, the proposed concept on the north side actually has a smaller footprint than some of the other options. So if you're looking at the right side of these pictures here represents the reservoir wall, and then moving to the north across the roadway with the different scenarios, the blue line represents the edge of what would be the construction, and the top drawing is the proposed concept with the path on the north side. And then the middle drawing is if you put the path on the south side, it's actually going to go a little further to the north. And the reason is there's parts of the south side where the existing sidewalk is, where there's not enough room between the reservoir wall and the roadway to put in a standard path and buffer. And so you would actually have to shift the roadway to the north a little bit to fit that in, which pushes the north side closer to the neighborhood. And then the bottom picture is, if you just said, well, we'll just put the bikes in the road, on-street bike, buffered bike lanes, that pushes it even closer to the neighborhood. And then this is a kind of a comparison in a table format of the different scenarios. You've got 6-foot sidewalk on the north side with a path on the reservoir side, 10-foot path on the north, 12-foot path on the north. And then what if you just had 6-foot sidewalks on both sides with buffered bike lanes? And you can see that comparing the proposed concept to putting the path on the south side or putting in buffered bike lanes, it's a significant cost savings with the proposed concept. And then it's really the most effective use of the right of way based on the cost and the fact that it really, if you put it on the south side, another issue you have is that you have more driveway crossings, you need more easements. And then just comparing it 10-foot path versus 12-foot path, there's really not a significant difference there. The impacts are similar. So staff is recommending approving the contract amendment to move forward with the design and to be completed in 2025 with right-of-way and easement acquisition to follow in 2026 and construction proposed for sometime late 2026. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments from council? Catherine?
Do all the houses that are attached, did they agree to this plan? That are on the north side?
I can't say that they all agreed to this plan. We feel like we've addressed the primary concerns, which are stormwater, privacy, and the speeding, but I can't say that there's unanimous support for the project throughout the corridor.
So you'll have to go after, you'll then ask them to agree to this and get the easement?
Well, the Four Oaks section, the only easements that are needed are closer down towards Winters Chapel. All the residents on Four Oaks that back up to the project, we don't need any easements
Oh.
there. So there's a couple of houses down by Glaze Drive, and then of course the business there is where all the easements and right of way are for this proposal.
Okay, thanks.
John?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I do appreciate what you've done to try to bend over backwards to try to appease the residents there. I mean, typically I am not in favor of 12-foot trails, and when it comes to this one, I'm probably not going to vote yes. But that being said, I have a couple questions. Tell me about the lighting. I'm looking at your drawings and I'm not seeing any lighting whatsoever in your layouts and your proposals. Tell me what's next for that aspect.
The lighting would be, of course, the lighting is evaluated on every project based on the conditions, but it would be similar to Winters Chapel as far as the style of lighting and the spacing is going to vary based on the conditions, but they're typically to provide adequate lighting for the path, they're going to typically be 70 to 80 feet apart.
And they're 12 feet high?
Right, yes.
And would that then be higher than the fence? And what's the lighting aspect for the residents that are abutting it?
That's something we can look at by doing the LED lights that we're using now. You can put them on dimmers. So the issue is when you have a trail next to a roadway, it's really a transportation facility. And so you need to provide some amount of adequate light for people that may be using that as a mode of transportation versus, recreation in a park. So there's a standard we need to try to meet there, but when it gets to be, sometime at night when the amount of traffic is going to be very low, I think you can dim those fixtures if that's what needs to be done to, for the overnight hours when there's really no traffic.
All right, there was a lot of work being done with stormwater. Tell me what's happening with the current stormwater system in the sense of the orphan pipes, the backfilling, the flow. There's a conversation and public comment regarding that. Can you give us an update as far as that subject is concerned?
Well, can you repeat the question? I'm not
Yeah,
exactly
there
sure.
was a public comment regarding current pipes. Now, you might be putting in a new system and there might be an old system and they wanted you to fill it in with fill it with concrete or some fillable flow. There you go. I just want to make sure that the water coming off our right of way is being funneled directly into our system as the all new improvements. So we're improving the system and the issue's not making it worse, but they had specific questions regarding the older pipes and the fillable flow.
Right, yeah. So yes, so we are proposing to connect all the stormwater into existing pipe systems. As far as other pipe systems in the neighborhood, based on our stormwater extent of service, some of those pipes we've already worked on. Some of those pipes we would take if there was a problem in the future, but we may not necessarily own them now. And then some of the pipes are considered private and not part of the system, and so we wouldn't be able to do anything with those. But what we're proposing is connect our stormwater into pipes that would be public, that we would own and maintain. And by doing that, any other water going in the systems that we don't own would be reduced by what we're doing on this project.
Yeah, we're going to make it better. The phase one is mentioned a number of times, and the phase one for the Peeler Road path, it's from Winters Chapel to Lakeside, right? That's it? That's the only.
That's right.
All right. And so in that section, we're talking 227 trees. What is the plan for the city to replace the number of trees that would be taken out for this project?
Okay, I think the best illustration of that is probably going to be, probably right here. It's, so there'll be an opportunity to plant trees along between the road and the path. And then there'll be an opportunity behind the fence. There'll be a slope on a lot of this section where we can replant trees on that slope. And, we can work with the residents on what type of trees. I would presume, based on all the discussions we've had and about concerns of privacy, that it would be evergreen,
Right.
trees that would kind of grow in and provide a screen eventually. And so that's what they've tried to show here. The higher trees in the background are some of the existing trees that would remain. There'd be some on the right of way that would remain, and then of course the ones in the people's backyards, and then there would be a space in between where these shorter new trees would go in.
All right, and again, the mayor asked you to look at the other options, and I'm seeing the costs of all options where everything into consideration. This 12-foot path you've estimated at 3.25 million, that's correct?
Yes.
Where the other ones were up to 4.5 million for a 6-foot sidewalk on the south side based on the road shifting and the other options. All right, I think I understand. I do appreciate you trying to help the residents as much as possible. Thank you.
Rob?
I just want to piggyback on one of John's questions, just related to stormwater. Are there any existing stormwater problems you're aware of right here? I mean, are we going to make it better for somebody that's got a flooding issue in their yard? Any improvements that we're hoping that you can highlight?
I'm not aware. Well, I've heard a lot of stories about, people with sump pumps in their basement, that pump a lot of water out. I think there's shallow groundwater out there from everything I've heard. I'm not aware of, there's one system that's private that's not in good shape on one property. I don't recall any specific issues with people saying that they were flooded out. Like water came down the slope and into their house, but regardless, certainly what we're proposing to do is going to divert water away from these residents that sit below Peeler Road.
Stacy?
I just want to make sure that I understand the deliverable with this contract, because back in 2021, we unanimously voted to give the design contract for this project to the same company. And so now, after all these iterations, we're basically going back and saying, okay, we think we have more of a final design concept. And so what's the deliverable? What are they going to give us?
Final plans for construction.
Final plans for construction. It's kind of, and it's based on this concept here.
Yes.
Perfect. And yeah, that's it. So, okay, got it.
Joe?
Michael, Michelle, everybody, public, community, outreach, everybody up and down from staff and, Tom, district level, just thank you for, we're taking our time, doing a very stepwise process, iteratively evolving, listening, working. I very much appreciate what work you've done to put this to this point. I appreciate showing a nice, easy to read matrix of what we heard, and these are the remediation. I appreciate the photos of the person on the street viewpoint, because we've seen the engineering design, and I've kind of always kind of harped back on, show me what it would look like as a human. And so you've done that here. I can talk to people, we'll go over to Winter's Chapel, but you can see this right here. So I know this costs money and it takes time, effort, but it really, I think it's adding value to showing someone the due diligence we've done of looking through this. It's also going forward that said that, this is using our penny sales tax, SPOS sales tax, right? So we're not taking money away from our operating funds. We're not taking away from our salaries. We're not taking away from law enforcement activities and so on. This is that penny sales tax, the SPOS sales tax, and this has been in our capital improvement program, right, Michael, for a few years now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So that's right. I really appreciate, I'm a huge fan of having a trees in the buffer between the cars in the landscape buffer, that you can get to that here. I'd love to see more of that. So I really believe that's making you feel more safer, calmer. You're, as a user, even on the cars, the Splitter Island, what you can do to slow traffic and calm traffic. I wish we can't teach everybody traffic engineering and safe streets designs of just having community surveys when they said, well, I didn't really like the mini roundabout. But did they attend a week, a 16-hour training session and take an exam, and then the light bulb turned on? So I know that we have to temper that, right, with what our best practices, but safe streets, traffic calming, the pedestrian calming. This is another node, you've shown that where we already have one built. This is here. And then we have the other one. Now, what's the timing on the other phase on Winters Chapel from the one we just finished to get to Peeler? How does that flow in with this whole time?
Yeah, that's the dashed P17 on this map. It's in design right now, but that's a federal project, so the construction's projected 5 years out. But they're doing environmental studies now. They're working on developing a concept, and we'll have a public meeting on that. But it's in process.
So then timing wise, you think that what we're talking about today could probably be constructed prior to the other one with the federal funds then, more than likely? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But again, thank you for everybody and all the way up and down for this effort. Thank you.
Rob?
Stacy's question got me thinking of something to piggyback on here, and it's more of a general comment rather than something specific on this. But this ran over budget because we went through a lot more concepts. And so I guess just thinking for the future, when we look at these designs, maybe in our contract, we factor in some additional concepts. We talk about how we're not going to do a one size fits all in every location. And so I think we need to recognize that when we talk to the public and get feedback, perhaps that initial round, we need to think about what can we show with some pros and cons to help guide so that we don't end up where we are here, after we do that. So just a thought for the future.
Thank you, Rob. Mayor Deutsch?
All right, that should be here. Hold on. Okay. Rob's point is one of the points I wanted to make. The cost increase for design is mostly related to the work we've done with the neighbors over the last few years. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, it's both, the additional work we've done and the time.
Right.
3 years, almost 4 years, and especially these 3 years, costs have gone up a lot. Everybody's rates have gone up. So it's both of those things.
And can you go back to the page with the different options you explored, which is what I asked you to do at a previous meeting? So my first choice at that meeting, which you didn't present, was just to put a 6-foot sidewalk, or a choice, to put a 6-foot sidewalk on the neighborhood side. So is that the south side? I'm not very good at
That's
that.
the north side.
So with the bike lanes. Wait, I'm so confused. All right, so which option affords the neighbors the most privacy?
Well, the second line there with, we took a rough estimate of the distance that the limits of the construction would be from the rear of the houses. And the 12-foot path and no, I'm sorry, I'm reading it backwards. The 6-foot sidewalk with the path on the south side gets you a little further from the residence. We're talking, 10 feet maybe, in some places. But in general, they're all kind of in the same range of how far you're going to be away from, the houses all don't sit the same distance from the road, and the trail varies a little bit. So they're all generally in the same range.
Okay. Do any of these afford better stormwater solutions? Are they all about the same?
Yeah, that's all gonna depend on the impervious area, and that's
Mhm.
gonna be similar for all of them.
Okay.
You know, you're gonna have about the same amount of impervious. Obviously, with a 10-foot path versus a 12-foot, you're gonna have slightly less.
And is there a reason why, other than just because the 10-foot path is not your choice?
Um, we started with a 12-foot path because
Right.
that's kind of been the city standard. And, you know, I think long-term, it's hard to say which segments of trail eventually, when it's all connected, may have the most traffic on them, but the more traffic you get on a trail, the more that extra couple of feet is helpful. Um, 10 feet still does meet the requirement for a path.
Right.
So
So ever since we've been talking about paths and trails, I mean, for at least a decade, I have said many times that we're going to have to be flexible. And I think this is something we really need to talk about at our retreat, because we're a built out city. And we're unlikely to be able to do the widest paths on every busy, everywhere we think we might want to down the road. We're going to have spots, and I see it all over Metro Atlanta, where the sidewalk or the path widens and shrinks. And I think that overarchingly has to be our, for me personally, it's my mantra with trails and paths, that it has to be flexible. So I don't know, the 10-foot path actually looks pretty appealing to me with the fewer trees removed. And we will see a design, like this isn't the last time we're seeing this, correct? You'll have to bring a finished product back to us, correct?
yes, I mean, well, typically on these projects, we go and do the design after the
Right.
concept is approved. And then the next time it usually comes back is when we're ready to do a construction contract.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking I like the 10-foot with the trees, fewer trees. Everything else, I guess, is the same. Tom, why don't you talk about what you learned from the neighbors? Or
Yeah, sure. So,
I'm not running the meeting, so you do what you want to do, sorry.
yeah, thank you. So, first of all, I do want to thank, Michael and Michelle, and even this goes all the way back to Ishri, actually, who's not here, he's in Tucker, for the work with the neighbors, this is, I think this project is a good example of the challenges we have in public service, right? Because the community doesn't agree on everything. We heard a lot of comments tonight about people that support this project. We know there are people that oppose it. So how do we kind of toe that line and make a decision that's best for the city? We've been, since the concept plans were introduced 3 years ago, we've really been in constant contact with the community, with the neighborhood, particularly the Four Oaks neighborhood. That's really the one that has the greatest impact here. And I do believe that we've done a good job of putting a greater emphasis on those properties that are most impacted, which will be the 12 that kind of back up to Peeler Road. I know personally I've reached out individually to each one of those properties. I've facilitated multiple community meetings and attended those, listened to the feedback. I've had countless emails, phone calls. Met with people one-on-one on their properties and walked the property. I think you did a good job of highlighting the biggest concerns, which were the privacy and the stormwater. Those are really the two biggest and consistent concerns for those, particularly those homes that are impacted the best. And so for me personally, and this is just how I deal with this, is, the important thing is to have a conversation and a dialogue. I know sometimes the instinct is, well, people don't want this, so we should just throw it away. But I think when you listen to the community and find out what their real concerns are and listen to the neighbors and genuinely listen, often there's ways to mitigate those concerns in an effective way, where you can still get the benefit of the project without having a negative impact on those that are most affected. And I think over the 3 years, and it's been pointed out, I think that's why we're at where we are today. Because this is simply tonight a contract amendment and really nothing more, but it will get us to the final design because we have listened and because we've gone back and made, I would say substantial changes to the original concept, or impactful changes is perhaps a more appropriate word, that have addressed these concerns. I think today we have a much better project as a result. I think we have something that for those most impacted homes is going to be an improvement on current situations, not only for the stormwater, because there is no curb and gutter there right now. The water just flows freely from the road. So that stormwater issue, there's nothing to control that. We will have something there. Privacy, it depends on where you are on Peeler Road, but many of those homes, especially as you get closer to Windward Hollow, are actually at a lower elevation than the road themselves. So right now, they really don't have any privacy from Peeler Road, the road itself, as well as the existing sidewalk on the other side of the street. Because if you walk the sidewalk on the other side of the street, although you're further away from the homes, you could still kind of see into the backyards of most of those homes as you walk along there. And a lot of the trees that are along there, it's a lot of scrub brush and tall loblolly pines, which really don't provide any screening. So I do believe that the improvements that we're making with the fence and with the evergreen trees, the combination of that, I think is a good 1-2 punch to address that. That'll not only have privacy from the pedestrian facility that we're putting in, but also from the road that's there now. And there's some, tangential benefits with the speed control devices that we're putting in there. The splitter islands, removing the deceleration lane, all of those things, because speed is a concern. And let me just pause. I'll ask a question here, because we did hear questions and concerns about speed, and I know we've looked at the thought of. Can you just address how we've handled those?
Yes, we've recently looked at possibly reducing the speed on that road, the speed limit. Based on the current conditions out there today and the current speeds out there today, it's hard to make a case for that. But we think by introducing some of these elements and kind of recharacterizing the road, once this is built, then we can go back and revisit that and see if we've calmed the traffic enough that we could justify a lower speed limit, if that's something the city wants to do.
Right, and then that has to go through GDOT, so that's not just an arbitrary thing that the city can go and lower the speed limit. We have to actually go through GDOT to do that, but these improvements may improve our case to get a lower speed limit there, which would benefit everybody, because the speed there, it's just a long, straight, flat road that encourages people to drive fast. So, but I do want to make another a comment just to address something that might not be crystal clear, because the plans we have here are based off the original conceptual plans. There's been some updates, but I know Ms. Singleton raised a question in the public comments at the beginning of the meeting about the fence. And what was presented tonight doesn't show, but we've had discussions that the final plan is going to continue that and close that gap that exists between the DeKalb County property there and that last Four Oaks property, so that there won't be that easy access for people to just walk through into the backyards. That gap will be closed, and we've had that discussion. So I just want to confirm that's, although the plan doesn't 100% show that here, that is going to be a part of the final plan. We've addressed that concern.
Yeah, so this is just showing the privacy fence to where that elevation issue exists, but I think the gap you're talking about is about where the blue pipe goes into that green hatched area.
It's basically the green hatched area.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a small gap there that once we put the pipes in, we should be able to close that. I'm not real sure why the gap is there, but
And we talked about, I mean, I know some of that may be based in the final planning, but the preferred way would be just to continue the existing fence all the way down there to close that, but it may be for practical purposes, just putting a fence across that open area, but one way or another, it will be closed off.
Yes.
In the final plan. Okay, and so I guess getting back to what I was saying is, I think, I've had a lot of conversations with the neighborhood, and I remain open to speak to anyone throughout this whole process until one way or another it's finished. And through the process, the question was asked, are people in support of it? I think people appreciate generally the changes that have been made to address their concerns. While I wouldn't say there's rousing support by some of the people, some people do support it actually. But I'd say it's more cautious that, okay, this addresses the concerns and this is something that we can accept. So with respect to the distances, you put up the chart there. Ironically, the 6 foot, because we're adding the bike facility, actually encroaches more on the properties than the 10 or 12 foot. And I personally, I kind of agree with your recommendation, Michael. The impacts between the 10 and the 12 are fairly insignificant in the big scope of the concerns that have been raised, and everything else with this project. That said, I'm not I'm not going to say it has to be 12. I think you look at each individual project on its own merits. So in this particular case, I think the 12 foot is a better solution. But if the consensus of council is 10 feet, then I'm not going to stand opposed to that. I do think the benefit, though, as you mentioned, this is the east-west kind of connection, especially as we go up Winters Chapel. I think this will be an important corridor for the city and for the residents. And the most important part is keeping communication open with them, which I think we've done. I actually had a conversation this morning, a long conversation, that someone had some last minute questions and concerns. And as I explained, sometimes it's just a misunderstanding because, let's face it, most people aren't engineers that know how to read a plan. And once we explained actually what was happening, they actually felt good about what the plan was. So I guess with that, that's all I have to say. Mayor Deutsch, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I'm doing this wrong. Sorry. I turned off the video and now I can't get it back on, but I'm here. Seriously. I kind of wonder if we ought to talk more or consider the 10 foot. I know it's an insignificant amount cheaper. I think that's only $50,000, not only, but $50,000. But I think it sends a flexibility signal. I don't know. You can see the room. You can see if there's consensus around anybody interested in that. I can make an amendment. Or I don't know, Michael, if it's too early to make that decision. Is that guidance you need tonight?
yeah, we would need that to move forward because the next phase is to start finalizing the design. So we would need to know that to move forward.
Okay. And then, yeah, I'd like to see if there's anybody interested in, I mean, I can do it as an amendment in a minute if that's more appropriate, Tom. I don't usually get to do that. But I do think that it's a little bit of saving trees. It sends a message that we're flexible. I do think we've done everything we can. I think it's important to note that since the inception of the city, before I was even on council, there was talk of east-west connectivity. And that it was a very important goal of the original council even. But as I've said, what that looks like is gonna have, we're built out, it's gonna be complicated. But it's an important tool, and we've also prioritized in our transportation plans that on major streets and busy streets, and I know in Dunwoody, it can be complicated because we have houses on most of those streets. But they are busy streets that we want to put some kind of pedestrian sidewalk, path, trail on both sides, so people don't have to make crossings where it's not safe. But I also know we're working on safer crossings, right, for Michael, for Peeler? That's one of the things you're working
Yes.
on.
Yeah, we're, at this project, we have a refuge at Lakeside, and then on the Happy Hollow project, we're going to look at how we can make that crossing better at Happy Hollow
Okay,
for that sidewalk project.
yeah. And so that's just my feedback. And we're trying with the speed limit. We understand the state doesn't let you just do it, Harry, whatever you want, because they think people, cities and counties do it for ticketing purposes. So they have rules, but we're working on it. And that's all I have till we get to voting.
Okay, so, so we're approving tonight the contract amendment. I know there's discussion on the width. Madam Mayor, would it be, could we vote on the amendment and get a decision? Not yet. On the width afterwards?
Yeah, so there's really not, in the action item, there's really not anything
To do.
about the width, so I don't think you need a
Okay.
amended motion, but we do need some direction on that before we can move forward.
Okay, so,
Move to approve the contract amendment.
A second.
moved by Stacy, second by Catherine.
Discussion?
I do have a question. So we are voting to approve the amendment, and we will at our next meeting, provide guidance on the width,
No.
which would be a month from now.
Well,
No,
Is that,
no, no.
explain to me the process of what
You're,
exactly.
you're, in the packet right now is a contract amendment, and that's what we're approving with this current motion, is what is in the staff's. And that contract says proposed 12-foot. If I'm reading, it says 12-foot in the letter from Practical Design
Yeah,
Partners.
That's their design assumption, yes. So I guess, it doesn't really affect the contract price or, what you're approving, but we do need to decide that.
So here's what we have a motion on the floor and we'll vote on that. What I will do is I'll reach back out to each of these homes. I will say this, in all the conversations I've had with everybody, I've never really had anyone talk to me about 10 versus 12. It was more the 6 versus 12. And in the 6 foot, as has been pointed out, is more of a detriment into space because of what's required to do that. So I'm happy to reach out to each of those homes again and see as far as direction, if that's acceptable to.
Can also just for perspective that just recently we've approved moving forward with the 12-foot path on Mount Vernon and Jet Ferry. And that's much higher density, much closer in, and we're needing rights of way from that. So I just want to put that to folks, conversation point here from a point of view. If we're really looking at choke points and narrowness, well, I think we have more room on Peeler than we do on Mount Vernon. And so, here we're looking, I would propose, again, I'm supporting the 12-foot on the Peeler area if that's, given we're doing a 12-foot at Mount Vernon.
John?
Michael, can you give us an update as far as, I know we're looking at 12, the mayor's thinking 10. What are the legalities of width and how does it change the infrastructure if we were to go to 8, 10, or 12? What changes?
Okay, so if we're talking shared use path for bicycles and pedestrians, then 8 feet is not a acceptable standard width. Anything 10 and above is, it's really a council decision, I think, it's, a policy decision, but, my opinion is for the, it's a big project. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be disruptive going through all that. For the incremental cost of 12 feet, you have it and you don't wish you had it later from the amount of effort you're going to go through to do this. But that's an opinion. 10 feet is adequate.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No,
All right, that passes 5-2.
sorry.
Let's see, thank you, Michael. Next up, capital project closeout and reallocation of funding, Richard.
Good evening. So this is a agenda item that we bring toward the end of the year to close out and reconcile budget and actuals for projects that have completed during the year. So we have 2 slides within SPLOST 1. We have a couple of projects that we're reconciling here. So if you look in the highlighted column right in the middle, proposed budget adjustment, that negative amount is what, if it has parentheses around it, that's what's coming out of the project. So that's going to mean that total budget is going to equal total actuals, and we're going to close out those projects. And so the majority of the projects within SPLOST 1 are projects that we're closing out and removing budget from. We had to move it to 2 projects at 1816 Winters Chapel, about $5,000 there. And then we're taking the new amount, and staff are proposing a new project, Ashford Connector, for the remaining amount of $294,000, almost $295,000. So again, you'll notice the bottom line is 0 impact to the fund. We're just reallocating among projects within SPLOST 1. And a similar exercise within the Capital Projects Fund, Fund 350. We are taking money out of Chamblee Dunwoody and Spalding as well, the Georgetown Connector and Chamblee Dunwoody at Spalding. And the final one, Chamblee Dunwoody at Womack, taking money out of those and then reallocating them to resurfacing. And then West Side Connector and Winters Chapel multi-use path to align the budget with actuals for those projects as well. Again, you'll notice the net change is 0 to the funds. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Richard.
One
Stacy?
question. With the Chamblee done the Georgetown Gateway with the 1.2, how much is left of that project?
So the project from a construction standpoint, and I hope Michael's still here.
Nope, he ran. Michelle is.
Yeah. You scared him off. Well, he was supposed to stay. I did ask him to stay. Okay. The majority from a construction perspective is done. We're leaving money in there from the financial perspective. It's a state funded project. So we do have a grant reimbursement coming. So we want to make sure we have the match in there. We are holding off until all invoices have been paid and all grant money has been received to get kind of that quote unquote final amount to know what is available to reallocate. So that's why we still have funds left there in that project.
See, you didn't need Michael for
that. He's probably scared now and he wants.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Rob?
Just a question, if you could give one more sentence of description about where we're adding funds, the Ashford Connector and resurfacing. Resurfacing, I'm guessing, is just expansion of our paving.
So the resurfacing one, so that gets a little tricky. For years prior to when me and my predecessor were here, we tracked capital spending on spreadsheets. And so we have moved to tracking it within Tyler, within our financial system now. For whatever reason, on the spreadsheet, we had trouble tying out the actuals. So I have worked, my predecessor started it, I finished it, a reconciliation of the resurfacing. We actually thought we had money available in there, but when we went through and did the reconciliation and found out what the actuals were, we had actually overspent we haven't overspent the budget. I want to make sure what I say is correct. It's really just a reconciliation process, and that we kept it from spreadsheets and we moved to the financial system and realized that we had overspent on that project compared to what the budget was. For Ashford Connector, I will let Michael, I think he came back, yeah. On the Ashford Connector, I know, Michael, you have some specific stuff that you wanted to do with that one, or what you're proposing with those funds.
Yeah, that's a project in the trail plan that's on Ashford Center Parkway, connecting Ashford Dunwoody to Shamley Dunwoody. So that money would be to start the design for that project, connecting perimeter to the village.
Any other comments or questions? Joe?
Move to approve.
Mayor Deutsch?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Joe, second by Stacy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimous. Thank you. You have to read this one, right? Okay.
The next item is an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 of the City of Dunwoody Code of Ordinances to restrict the unlicensed sale of dogs, cats, or domestic rabbits.
All right, good evening, Mayor, good evening, Council. This is the second read for this text amendment to regulate the transient sale of dogs, cats, and domestic rabbits. This is a text amendment to our animal control ordinance. And I'll quickly give the background here, and then I'll go to the changes that we made since you last saw this text amendment. These types of sales are ongoing concern that are sort of encapsulated in the term sort of puppy mills and backyard breeders. So it's the unlicensed commercial breeding of these types of animals and then sale on either flea markets or on roadside kind of locations or on parking lots. That evades oversight of USDA or the Georgia Department of Agriculture where it applies. And the reason why we're bringing this now is that other communities surrounding us have started adopting these rules with Roswell and DeKalb County recently, which leads us to have the fear of spillover of this activity into Dunwoody, which is why we're bringing this before you all now. We had a lively discussion 2 weeks ago during the first read. I have 3 items flagged here that we heard and that we've analyzed and that I want to report back on. First one is, can we include all animal species? And we did a bit of analysis here. And if we say all animal species, that's a very, very broad term, and it could include something like worms as bait or any of those items. So what I would recommend is let's start with these 3 species. They're the bulk of the activity. And then if we see anything, you can add to it. You know, it's easy to add another species to it. It's easy to add something if you have the ordinance in place already. The second item, what about pet stores? Should we regulate all pet sales? Which is a worthwhile policy conversation. It's beyond the scope of this specific text amendment because it's to the animal control ordinance, and regulating all pet sales would really be a zoning item. For zoning, we have increased public hearing requirements. It needs to be advertised in specific ways. We're happy to do it if it's the will of the council, but it needs to be done as a separate amendment or potentially be rolled into the code update. The third item that we did make changes to the ordinance, so I want to spend a bit more time towards that, is that council flagged that it wishes sort of more robust exemptions for the personal sale between 2 residents. For instance, you know, I have a dog that happens to have a litter of puppies, and I try to sell it to another resident here. That wasn't clear enough that was okay activity. We've added like a 4th exemption here. If you remember, we had initially 3 exemptions. In the initial ordinance, we added a 4th one here. that exempts any transfers that are, number one, prearranged between a specific buyer and a specific seller. So it can't be something where I stand on the side of the road and I wait for a seller to come. It needs to be something that I prearrange, and that is really just the transfer itself. And the second is it cannot include any furniture, such as tents, tables, or chairs. And it's a bit of an odd condition to something like this, but why we included it in here, because we want it to be easy for enforcement to identify that this is activity that's prohibited. So for instance, code enforcement drives by, sees that someone sort of set up shop with the tents and a table, and I'll bring up that image here again. So let's say code enforcement drives by or police drives by. This situation, they don't have to like look into that person's head to see what it is that they're doing. They can point to the ordinance that says it cannot have any furniture in place, no tents, no tables, and can immediately see that this is prohibited activity, which is sort of why we included that item in there. But this is the second read. We had the first read 2 weeks ago. Staff recommends adoption to this, and I'm available for any questions.
John?
Thank you for the update. I still have questions. I'm trying to understand number 4. Well, number 3 as well. A prearranged transfer is not on the side of the road. So you show your photo with the tent and the chair. If I take away the tent and put up a hammock, am I allowed to do it on the side of the road? Because it's not a chair, there's not a table, and there's not a, I'm just trying to understand, but it's still not prearranged.
Right.
So why are you saying that you are fine if you don't have a chair and a tent and a table? It's not prearranged on the side of the road. It's illegal. Enforce it right then. I don't understand why we are gumming it up. I guess I'm just all prearranged, person to person is allowed, roadside or anything else isn't. I'm trying to read the words going, okay, I want to do it roadside and I'm going to not use a tent and not use a chair and not use a table.
I think the big difference in our mind is like if that is what's happening, if you meet me to sell me the dog and then that is something that's transitory, right? It's something that doesn't take a ton of time. It's something that people wouldn't even notice. It's something that if, let's say, police drives by, they see you there with a little puppy, they would just continue driving by. They wouldn't even ask any questions. If this allows them to have this immediate sort of shortcut that there is someone who has a lot of equipment out there who sets up something that looks an awful lot like a flea market where they can see this. It's something easy to digest for someone who just has 10 seconds sort of while driving by. It's easy to digest from an enforcement standpoint that there's an activity that isn't allowed and where they can go and then start asking questions.
Again, it's not enough for me to vote no. I'm just trying to understand if there's a way to make it simpler where all prearranged person to person is allowed, roadside's not, or anything. I mean, it's just, to me, we're complicating it. It's allowed at a police station. Well, nothing personal. It's allowed at your house too. I don't know. I'll let other council jump in, but I just think number 4 is a little gummier than it should be.
Go ahead, Rob.
I'll agree with Jack, because my initial thought was, well, I'll just bring my van and open the side door of my van, and I've now circumvented that. So I think just I mean, the key crux here honestly seems to be public right of way rather than private property or private lot, something where we actually have authority. So just a thought there. The other one, I mean, it's not enough to hold up my vote, but I could see so many other things being sold by the side of the road that we don't want sold by the side of the road. And it seems like you could say, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians. You could say vertebrates if you wanted to allow worms and lobsters. I mean, there are ways around it. I'm not going to I'm not gonna go in search of trying to come up with every loophole. I'm fine with responding. But that's just my personal thought on that.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments?
So the purpose of this is to keep people from selling puppies, cats, and rabbits, because that's what everyone tells us is being sold on the side of the road. That's the purpose. It's not if you have a pet guinea pig and you're giving it away, but you want to get a little money for it so you know the person has good intentions in your house. We don't care about that. I'd hate that we're overthinking this, because the main reason we're even doing it is because all our neighbors are doing it. And we've already seen within a week or two of Roswell, or a month or two of Roswell passing it, there was someone at North Peachtree in 285 selling puppies out of a van with a tent. And so if this proves impossible to enforce, then we can come back and redo it. But the thing is that on every other, not that we've had tons, but every other time a neighboring city passes something restrictive and we don't, the behavior seems to migrate here. And that's the only reason I asked them to do it. It wasn't even on my radar, truthfully. But you know, I think this is the behavior we don't want is pretty obvious. And we're not, we're not going to arrest them. We don't want the dogs to necessarily go to the pound or the animal control. We just want them to move on, right? Just move on. Don't do that here. So, we copied this from Roswell, right, Paul, pretty much, and DeKalb.
Yeah, why this is happening right now is that there's a non-profit association that is sort of had introduced model language. So yes, Mayor. So it's virtually the same as what Roswell and DeKalb did.
Thank you.
Okay. This is an action item if there are no more comments or questions.
Oh, I can move. I move that it be approved. I think I can move. It doesn't.
Second. Moved by the mayor, second by Joe. Call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That passes unanimous. Thank you, Paul. Yes. Okay.
The next item is a resolution pledging to practice and promote civility in the city of Dunwoody. I'm happy to read the entire resolution if you would like,
That
but
would
what
be
we're,
great. Well, Sharon, you don't have to read it, but I'm struggling to.
thank you, Mayor.
All right, this is a required renewal. Councilman Lautenbacher brought this to us originally. Would you like to say anything?
Catherine, would you like to say anything?
I would like to say that this is a good idea for us to continue our quest for civility, our promotion of civility, our practice of civility, and I ask that we move to approve.
Second.
There you go.
Moved by Catherine, second by John. Call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Thank you. Item 14 is the athletic agreements for Dunwoody Senior Baseball and Dunwoody High School Softball Booster Club. Rachel.
Okay. Good evening. So earlier on consent, you approved 5 of our 7 athletic agreements. That was for the school user groups aside from the softball booster club, also Rush Union and MABL. What's left is the softball booster club and Dunwoody Senior Baseball.
feedback for the last meeting, we needed to tighten up language a little bit on transition between those two user groups. So that's what I have here tonight. Same background you all saw last time. So specifically what we've added is language in both the softball booster and the Dunwoody senior baseball agreements under obligations of the club, where it states the responsibility of the club is to ensure its own appropriate setup to include, but not limited to, removal and or installation of any fencing, benches, and players' mounds, depending on the sport, to maintain safety. Prior to this change, it was a little open-ended. It spoke more to groups getting ready for their program. But in the case of softball, then they're being left with, coaches, parent volunteers getting ready for Dunwoody Senior Baseball, who's a larger organization. The same language is in both agreements, Dunwoody Senior Baseball, softball booster. They're in the same spot under the obligations of the club. It's redlined within each agreement in your packet. Aside from that, everything we discussed at the last meeting, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding these two agreements.
I thank you for making that change. I think it makes it equitable for both organizations and very clear that they're each responsible for setting up their own needs on the fields, and I appreciate it, and I move to approve.
I'll second that.
Moved by Stacy, second by John. All in favor? Oh, do you have a
Any more
question?
discussion?
You have a question?
Well, I just wanted to ask, can't they all get along? I know it needs to be in paper. I know expectations need to be met. Have you met with the groups? Have you explained it? And where are we at with moving this forward? Have this already been discussed? And how is it moving forward, going from this date forward?
Yeah, so it's been discussed in depth with Dunwoody Senior Baseball because it does affect them more than the softball booster. There is sort of a verbal agreement currently about the two groups helping each other. There's not oversight on whether or not that's happening, so that's what this language is for. Is so something I can go back to in case I do hear that that's not happening.
Okay, but you've already had the discussions with them. They know it's coming, so this is not a surprise, and that's
Yeah,
more
this
discussion for
was-
me. I'm good, thank
yeah.
you. Figured it was worth asking.
Mayor Deutsch, any comments or questions? No. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimous.
I heard Joe. Joe said yes.
Oh, yeah. It's just gone. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, guys.
We move on to the discussion items. Michael, you're back on Chamblee Dunwoody Bridge enhancement design.
Yes, we're here to talk about the bridge again. A few months ago, we presented a concept for the bridge. And the council's feedback was maybe it didn't want to spend that much money, look at some options to scale it back, and also add some things like the name of the city and the road on there. And so Kimley Horn's here again tonight to give an update. And again, where we're trying to get to is settle on the concept and how much the city wants to spend, because after the first of the year, we need to start working with GDOT to have an intergovernmental agreement where they'll put this into their contract with the contractor for the managed lane project. They've said, GDOT has said they want any of those type agreements done by next summer. So we don't have a lot of, we have some time, but not a lot of time to do that. And I'm going to cue this up and let Kimley Horn walk you through it.
All right, thank you. Excited to be back before y'all again. As Michael said, we were before you about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, sharing progress. So we've made a few more revisions. So I'm going to present those to you this evening. So again, the MMIP program, there are 2 bridges that fall within the boundaries of the city of Dunwoody that are part of that program. Perimeter Center Parkway, which of course is part of the CID's program, and Chamblee Dunwoody, which falls outside of the CID. So the kit of parts approach that we took, again, really was just because of all of the different bridges that are part of this program, some of them being rebuilt, some of them not being rebuilt. And as you can see here, these are some of the elements that are really the key pieces of that program. So things like standardized lighting, the pylons, or two different types of pylons. So there's the taller one that you see here, which is more of a regional sort of destination type element. And then the smaller ones that are integrated into the railing. And we've come back and integrated branding into those as well. We know that was one of the specific requests. We also went ahead and integrated the signage you'll see here where it says Chamblee Dunwoody Road. So we've designed that to be part of the parapet wall as well. So the design has evolved over time. When it started, these are some images from some of the earlier design concepts. So there were some very large pylons on the ends. And then in between the lanes, you'll see the taller elements here in this picture below. That was really the one concern that GDOT had with our design, was just that they weren't necessarily comfortable with those coming all the way down to the freeway between the lanes. So that was the reason for the pylons being integrated into the railing. These are just a few more graphics as we continue to refine those with spaces for the branding, the medallions on the end, and then continuing to refine the design of the railing itself to make it a little bit more, more highly designed. And so this is an example showing of where we are today, integrating all of those comments that we got from y'all in the last go round. So you'll see the Chamblee Dunwoody Road sign with lighting so that it will be visible at night, as well as lighting integrated into the railing system and the pylons as well. So moving zoomed in a little bit more towards the corner. So these are those regional gateway pylons that we talked about. So again, Dunwoody's logo is located on all four of these. So you would see it from whichever direction you are coming from. There may be opportunities to potentially increase the size of this slightly if needed. But it seemed pretty legible as we were working on it here. And of course, this would also have uplighting as well. So these are the existing conditions you'll see today. So thankfully, pardon? Oh, sorry. So when it gets expanded, it'll actually increase the length of the bridge by about 1/3. So it's going to be a much larger bridge because you'll have lanes on either side of the existing lanes today. So if you're looking at no enhancements, this is one of the comments that we got last time was to take a look at that. So we did do some modeling of what that might look like. So that's the example that you see here, but we did add the Chamblee Dunwoody Road sign because we figured that's probably something that y'all would want in either case. So looking at an intermediate level of enhancement. So in this level, we went ahead and removed the larger pylons on the corners since those were one of the elements that we were asked to look at for cost savings, but maintained in this scenario really the rhythm that's created by having some of those smaller pylons that punctuate the railing itself. And then maintaining the lighting as well. And then of course the full enhancement version, which has all of the elements that I discussed previously. The other element I just wanted to touch on really quickly is the pedestrian conditions. So this is a shot of what exists today on the upper left. So what you would be getting if you didn't do anything, just left it as GDOT would have it, you still would be getting an expanded sidewalk. So they have agreed to the 14-foot sidewalk, but it would be the chain link and the plain concrete. Whereas if you were to go ahead with the two scenarios we looked at, we were asked to look at an option as an alternative to the planter. So the planter is this bottom option. The other option would just be putting in an additional barrier, so a concrete barrier between pedestrians and the roadway. And so with that, I guess open it up for thoughts and comments, and we have some costing information that we can dive into as well.
Excuse me. Thank you. Comments, questions, John?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. You're going back to the bridge that the PCID is doing. Do you have any design elements that they have? In other words, what railing is the PCID bridge going over 285? What's their element there?
This is the same bridge railing.
Same bridge.
Yes.
Okay, so, but what have they decided for their bridge? Because we're not deciding for them. I think they've.
Yeah, so right now what they've decided, what they want us to do is continue the design process through discussions with GDOT so that there's still some back and forth that has to happen for GDOT to tell us that this is exactly the dollar amount that they want and that it'll cost. And so the board wants to go through that process before making the final decision of yay or nay, knowing what that dollar amount will be. But as far as design revisions, they're not really looking at changing the design at this point. It's more a factor of would we do it or would we not do it when we have all the brass tacks in front of us.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what you said, but I guess I'm looking at, I want to mirror a little bit of what PCID has in the sense of, let's say, the railing. In other words, I
Yes.
don't want a chain link fence. If there was an upgrade I could ask for, I'd say no chain link fence.
Mhm.
I personally would like to keep it relatively plain, but no chain link fence, and put whatever the fencing is that PCID has. They are our rich uncle and they might have a nicer bridge, but that's okay. We're gonna have something close, have the same look in the sense of the fencing,
Mhm.
and then have the street name lit up, because I'm guessing they're gonna have that as well.
Yes.
And then after that, I'm not sure I need much else of improvement, but I guess I want something. I don't want the chain link fence because I want to mirror a little bit of what PCID has. After that, I'm not sure of the cost or the benefit or the long-term aspect. There's going to be some lighting on the bridge in the sense for pedestrian walkways. How's that working?
Yes, so there's the existing CID light that you can see here, their standard, which would be the larger for vehicles, but then there would just be a smaller standard light fixture that they have as well. It's kind of a traditional 12-foot luminaire.
Again, I guess my personal thought, find out what PCID has and keep it close, but keep it toned down. I just, for the bang for the buck, I don't know what these costs are in the sense of from one
Sure.
extreme to the other.
And I can go over some of those numbers.
So I do have one question. Yeah, I want to see, because you said she has some pricing. On the intermediate enhancement, is the city of Dunwoody, like, is that there in the far right and far right and far left?
Yes, so
Okay.
it's these two corners in the logo.
Okay, so they're there, just not very visible anywhere.
So
Is there any way that you could put them on the middle ones?
yes, so that was one thing so you'll see here it's lit up, but it's open. So that was kind of an open conversation that we wanted to have with y'all in terms of how much branding you want on the bridge.
I guess myself, I would like it branded, but if within the intermediate one, it doesn't really make much sense to so far out, because I don't know how visible it would be versus like right over 285. That's just and I'm kind of with John where, you know, keep it simple, stupid.
I think the numbers will help guide the discussion a little bit. If you said you had some of those you could share with us.
Yes. So starting with sort of the full package and moving backwards, so we can talk through some of the items. So the full package is about 2.45, sort of in that range, million. Of course, there's an escalation cost that GDOT would negotiate in with that. That would be probably around 30%. But as far as the actual construction cost, we'd be looking at a little less than 2.5. And so within those elements, a specific breakdown, the railing system that you see here, so just the railing, not the pylons, is about 650 to 700K of that. And then the pylons, so these taller elements built into the railing system, those are about 500, and then the four larger ones on the corners are about another 600K as well. So those are the biggest elements. The other piece that factors into the pricing would be looking at the concrete barrier versus the planter. When we actually ran the numbers, the difference is negligible. I mean, it's like a fraction of a percent, just because the cost of like the soil and the shrubs is a lot less than concrete. So they end up being fairly similar. But that element is about 100K for that.
Joe? Yeah, thanks. I have some, so I always like to flip it and look at the function of the deck itself, the bridge deck. So what you just ended with was good here on the dollar point for a financing perspective. I know you guys have been talking to us off and on a lot and every time, but I literally, and I don't remember if I said this before, you've seen what Sandy Springs does on their branding. And hold your thought on the branding though, but it's like I went and looked up, it's on Georgia 400, it's Encore Parkway Bridge.
Yep.
Right? And you look at that deck and I love the landscaping on it. It's separated, it's it's in between. So anything, you know, I'm a big separation of the non-motorized facility from the motorists. And adding some vegetation there. We still have the 3 men in a truck. Somebody will have to water it, right? Or irrigation or whatever. We'll have to maintain it.
It would be it would need to be irrigated,
Yeah.
yes.
And the lighting, look, I'll that's a separate conversation. I don't know that we as a city has formally adopted the PCID standard for lighting. Street lighting, I know we did it in Dunwoody Village Parkway. I know we just did it on Winter's Chapel. But it's a separate conversation aside from you here where we say, this is what we're gonna have for the whole citywide and doing it. I guess for look and feel on all the bridges, it should be the same and it really should be same from Sandy Springs throughout. So yeah, I don't know, is Sandy Springs having the same street lights that CID
Yeah, so
has?
they're using the PCID standard lighting is being used on those bridges as well.
I just thought of this, you know, the gateway signage, the new gateway signage that we're seeing around here.
It's
okay?
right at the end.
The font, instead of having the logo of the city, because it takes up city of, the option is, do we just say, hey, use the same font as the gateway type font? And then it's the same branding as they see on the gateway versus seeing it's just maybe for readability and standardization. If we're having all these gateway around and they're gonna see that same type font, just an idea here, you know, maybe I should get on the Public Art Commission and talk about that. Payment terms to GDOT. So, you know, I was at CID's meeting. We were at a few of us last month ago, and I heard that is it Tim Matthews. They asked about that. They asked about the payment terms because right now they're like upfront, but I definitely would love to hear about like, well, can you pay over time? Because, you know, when's this thing going to be built, right? So I'd like to get down in this.
Unfortunately, I don't have any more guidance from them because they still haven't given us a firm yes or no.
Right.
So that unfortunately I do.
I mean,
not.
if we say it's paid out over 5 years, hey, you know, or whatever, I'd like to know what the payment terms are, right? And when do we have to commit to writing a check? Sure. So, all right, thanks.
Just circling back to price again, you said full was 2.45. So what does that make the intermediate design that you have? You were throwing out
Yeah, I should have
itemized
mentioned
prices
that.
and I couldn't quite catch what everything was.
Yep. So the intermediate version would be more of like the 1.8, 1.9 type of range for that. And so really the biggest differentiator is taking the four larger pylon columns from the four corners off.
Well, I'm definitely with John. I don't think we need pylons for $500,000. It seems unnecessary.
And for the record, it makes me very cranky that our DOT is putting a 30% surcharge on this. Like, that's ridiculous.
Catherine?
I think I wanted the logo in the middle and on the sides, because that's not gonna cost much. That's
Yeah,
not-
that would be a negligible
Right.
cost change. We could do
That's
that.
what I want, and then the street name. Thanks.
Mayor Deutsch?
So what makes me cranky is that Chambly's not putting any money in this. And it's our bridge. And I know we need to put the street name on there, but I'd rather put Dunwoody in the center. I don't know. I'm not a visual person, but put Dunwoody in the center and Chambly Dunwoody exit or something on the side. I don't know, figure it out. But these bridges, which seem sort of insignificant until you go to other cities like Alpharetta and Sandy Springs, because they've already done it on 400 some, and maybe even on Roswell Road. I don't think so. I mean, on 285. It makes an impression. And I'm fine with the median option. I don't like the chain link fence. I think, to John's point, that's silly. I mean, we need to look better than that. It's important that we understand where PCID is going, not that we can afford necessarily to keep up with them. but that we can share some elements potentially, or at least not look like that. We want the bridges, it's very important to me that people understand what is Dunwoody. And so I want people to understand that Perimeter Center is Dunwoody. And actually the bridge after Perimeter Center is Dunwoody. And so that's my biggest concern, is that I think we're giving Chamblee credit for something we're paying for. And I'd like to see at least an image of, if y'all can figure it out, if you have the talent to figure out how we can make sure people realize this is the city of Dunwoody.
Sure.
So that's my main point.
All right, yeah, I have a question. So I'm kind of in agreement with most of the comments that have been made. I kind of like Stacy's idea of having Dunwoody more prominent. I mean, what I think of, and not to the same scale, but if you're driving down the connector, it says Peachtree. I mean, that's big and gaudy, but maybe a smaller scale version of that, where you can really identify that it's Dunwoody. I do have a question though. Could you go back to the as is photograph?
Oh, this one.
The as is. Yeah, we have giant overhead directional signs there that are pretty much blocking, or we're going to be spending money on stuff that the motorists won't even be able to see. I guess, is that been incorporated? I presume those signs will remain where they are. So are we going to, any design elements or enhancements or features, I want to make sure that can actually be seen.
So
So
I
that's-
don't necessarily have an
Okay.
answer on whether they will stay exactly there, because it's a factor of the distance of the exits, and all of those are changing. Unfortunately, I can try to find more information on that, but I don't have a solid answer.
Yeah, because I obviously, I mean, all of the renderings we see don't have that, for obvious reasons. You can't see the enhancements, but on the other side of it, the drivers won't be able to either. So,
Right,
so I
that's a
appreciate
good
that we could
question.
view the enhancements, but I want to make sure that if we're investing money into something, that the people driving through can enjoy those enhancements as well. And I'll again, this is not necessarily for you, but just share the frustration that I got the sense when we went to the PCID meeting and listening to Tim talk about this, that this isn't something that GDOT really likes to do. So they kind of make it. I mean, I feel like we're being held hostage because basically they're dictating the prices of this, the upgrades and.
So the reason that they put such a large sort of delta on this is because the timeframes are so long. So they're trying to account for the change in prices from now versus when they build it. There is some wiggle room in that where we can try to negotiate certain things with them. But at the end of the day, they do dictate what that final number is.
Yeah, and so I agree with the mayor's comments. I do think it leaves an impression. We should have something that leaves an impression that you're in Dunwoody, but to some of the other comments made, it shouldn't be at a cost that bankrupts the city either. So it needs to be in a reasonable price range. So I would guess the intermediate is where I would settle now based on what I've seen.
Sure.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the timing of all this. And I have a money question that maybe is for Eric or Jay or somebody that's there I can't see. One thing is that I have no idea when this project is really starting. And I think the last estimate, the most recent estimate I heard was 28 or 29. And so I guess it would be helpful for me and everyone to understand when the money would be due, or what, or as Joe said, what that looks like. But also, Jay, would we be able to use SPLOST funds for this, or somebody?
Yes, we can use SPOS funds, and I think the CID is having similar conversations with GDOT. That will be worked out, and the agreement is the payment terms of, I think everybody is wanting to spread this out and not pay it. I know the CID board expressed the same thing. Hey, we don't want to write a big check and then have to wait 5 years before you
Right.
actually need the money. So that'll be a conversation with GDOT.
I also think this is a drop in the bucket of the cost of this project, and they should just do it for us. I realize that's probably not realistic, but they're going to inconvenience us so much with this project. Yeah, my biggest concern is when we have to pay. Because, until they move dirt, with the way transportation technology is evolving, I'm still not 100% sure this project's ever going to be built. Or it's been delayed for so long now. And so I'm really concerned about money. And then the second thing is I'm concerned about branding. I want it to be clear that you're coming to Dunwoody. So that's the other thing. But
To that point, there's nothing that says we have to put the name of the road on the
Well,
bridge.
it's helpful if they can
I mean-
see it.
I mean,
to
GDOT may
John's
stick
point.
their standard green sign on it if we don't, but we
Right.
have to do that.
Right. Well, that's some of the stuff we need to find out. We need to find out if we put the Chambly Dunwoody on there. And I still can't figure out where this picture is exactly from. Because does that sign say Ashford Dunwoody? The sign on the right?
It's looking towards perimeter.
Oh, it's looking
This
towards.
may be an older picture before, they re-signed everything as part of the
Right. I
400
don't come
project.
that direction very much. So that's
As
why I
Winston
don't
said,
know.
they'll re-sign it again when they do this
Yeah.
project. So that's something we
That's-
need to work with them on to figure out if they can tell us where the signs.
Yeah, it'd
go.
be nice to get pictures of the Sandy Springs and Alpharetta signs and what the situation is with those green signs up there to see what it looks like at some point.
The signs on the custom signs on
Well,
the.
just to see, because I notice when I'm driving 400, I notice what the bridges look like. But I'm usually not looking at the green signs because I know where I'm going. And
Yeah,
so I'm
the
curious.
new ones they did, like at Pitts Road,
Yeah.
they did put the name of the road into their design. I don't remember what color it is, but it is.
Right, but
Yeah.
does it impact the green sign placement?
Oh,
That's
the
what I'm
big
trying to-
signs, I don't think GDOT, I mean, they may move those within reason. But they're not gonna make big changes to that based on where we want them, because
Well-
as Winston said, a lot of it has to do with how far you are from the
Mhm.
intersection, the exit, and how far the next sign is from that. I mean, once you start laying out the exits, the signs have to go within a certain distance. So.
Okay, I think we need to get more information on that.
And Michael, can you just confirm for me, at Chambly Dunwoody, the managed lanes, the current plan is to go under the bridge, correct?
Yes, you can see that here, to the right of that van, those are new lanes. And then there's some on the other side too. You see the current bridge that they have kind of a wedge on the ends.
Mhm.
They'll be taking that out and extending the bridge and putting a wall in there, and the lanes go under there on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Have we
John?
answered the decking in the sense of the planter, no planter? I said it was nominal cost. I don't think we've really discussed and given them an answer, so I don't know what we wanted to do with that.
Any discussion? I mean, I like the planner, especially if it's the same cost, but that's just me. Any other feedback?
Yeah.
I like the planners.
Yeah.
Planners.
The
Yeah, the
ongoing
planner, I mean-
cost, is it nominal or is it, I mean.
I think he said the 100,000 was for the. Either one, yeah.
They're within like 2,000-3,000.
But again, the ongoing cost for the plants would.
There would be a greater maintenance cost for that, yes.
All right, again.
And I'm hearing we're shooting for the intermediate enhancement.
I believe that was a consent.
Right.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
And
Maybe
so-
next time they come, they could get up earlier in the agenda.
And let me know if we're struggling with GDOT, because sometimes they respond better to me than staff. Because we
Okay.
need some answers. So we can make some decisions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Our next item, 2025 Georgia General Assembly Legislative Session. Mr. Vinicky.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To let you know that we have slated on the agenda for the first week of January a potential breakfast with our local legislative delegation. And this item on your agenda today is just to discuss topics that would come up at that point and just to get feedback from y'all beforehand. The mayor may also want to weigh in on some of this. As you can see, some of the issues are things, nothing's new on the radar. Emergency management services at the county level, state funding specifically in some specific areas that affect the city but are funded by the state, such as mental health services, homeless prevention programs, and as we've all talked about in the past, top-end transit programs. Like all good things, we duplicated something on this list because we weren't paying attention when we cut it and paste, but the abilities for cities to maintain rental registries, I'm glad that later on the list, it's the same thing, something different, just worded. Keeping sales tax data, maintaining at the municipal level, which will be a heavy lift. It's been a fight for cities for years. Improvements to House Bill 851. That's the one we've talked about recently with the floating homestead sales tax and the use of it. It has some potential. It also has some restrictions. And then finally, remove the requirement for school system approval of speed zone cameras. With this, if the mayor has anything she'd like to weigh in on or say remotely, I'd let her go and then we can have discussion.
So the breakfast is not potential. I think all three of our legislators have confirmed they're coming. And some of this is stuff we've seen every year. The state has a humongous budget surplus. It went away, but that's okay. The state has a humongous budget surplus. If they're taking recommendations, these are things that I think we could agree are worthwhile expenditures. The city of Decatur is now spending 3% of its budget next year on homelessness, even though, you know, people come from everywhere. We're still using ARP money for some of our stuff, but that will be gone by the end of next year. The rental registry issue is an interesting one. Multifamily complexes are different in code. They have on-site management. This specifically relates to residential properties owned by investors. And there's a line in the Georgia code that says local governments cannot keep a registry. The problem is more and more is becoming that code enforcement officers can't find anyone to serve. As an example, a few years ago in Dunwoody, we had an investment property owned by someone who lived in Metro Atlanta, but used an agent in New York City to represent them. And so this would allow, if we get that line struck, it would allow us to set what kind of information we would want. Every one of us has gotten complaints about rental properties. I'm really concerned. What drove me to include, this is a GMA priority, but what drove me to include it on our list is that I think these hedge funds primarily and other really large investment groups that invested in housing over the last 5 years don't always even know what they own. There's a house in Dunwoody that looked abandoned, and a resident looked it up and she called, and it was a local-ish investor who had totally forgotten that they had purchased it. Now they're working on it. So I just think it gives us more tools to keep our community safe. I'll be glad to answer any questions about the rest of this or take thoughts, whatever. And this is just a starting point or just whatever.
Rob?
Just one note, it's House Bill 581, not House Bill 851.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not a numbers guy.
Right.
Joe?
And so Lynn and I, we talked about this.
Right.
So we have our lobbyist as well. So we're gonna have a separate, so we got our
So I'm gonna
legislative
invite them
ask.
to the breakfast too.
Right. So like when you think about this, then when you think in the back of your head, okay, we got a lobbyist, we hired them. What what do we want them to focus on as well?
Right.
Right? So there's lower level task,
Yes.
and so on. So,
We've
yeah,
spent a
and
lot
I
of,
like, and you
Go ahead.
mentioned like the DeKalb Municipal Association, DMA,
Right.
right? Like working together, those guys, right?
In fact, the rental registry from a GMA perspective came from our neighbor Doraville. They've been pushing this for several years. I will say that, we spend a lot of time at the Capitol playing defense. A lot of time trying to keep legislation that might be bad for cities or bad for us. So that's what our lobbyists spend a lot of time doing. Maybe this is the year we get the school zone camera thing fixed. Anybody else? Oh, I'm not running the meeting, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just, John.
I'll just jump in. Lynn, last meeting or a couple meetings ago, we had the City of Milton lawsuit or their
Mhm.
brief. Is there anything on the legislative reform for civil lawsuits, or is there anything like
Yes.
that you were thinking about? Because again,
Well,
they had an action for us a month ago.
yeah, we can add language to this because GMA has stuff on tort reform and we'll add it. I just didn't put it on here.
Yeah, GMA, that is going to be one of the priorities for
Yes.
the next legislative session is tort reform. And the catalyst, of course, was the Milton situation.
I saw the governor had a couple items on that topic as well, so it looks like it might be moving somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, it's a tough one, thanks to the trial attorneys. But yes.
Okay, any more discussion? Thank you, Jay. City manager comments? Oh, I'm sorry, public comments. We do have 2 public comments left over from the beginning. There's a big poll there, but I do not believe we have any public here. So, any public comments? No public comments. City manager comments?
No additional comments. No executive session.
Council comments?
Me.
Yeah, let's take that. This is the final council meeting for 2024. So, just to the community, have a great holiday season, safe and enjoyable holiday season. And Mayor Deutsch, any comments?
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, Tom, for stepping in. I apologize that I had to come upstairs. I get terrible coughs that last long after the initial cold, so I apologize. I want to thank our school board member, Anna Hill. She is at her last school board meeting. She served 1 term and chose not to run again. She's actually moving out of state. But I want to thank her for her service. School board member is a tireless job. And Anna came in with her accounting background, laser focused on things the school system should be doing, and they were not, in terms of audits and other financial practices. And she's made, though it seemed very slow to her, significant progress on getting those tools in place and being used. For example, the SPLOST audit shows all kinds of issues, like we're in SPLOST 6, we're well into SPLOST 6. They spent 4% of SPLOST 6 as of earlier this year. They still have, I think, 40% of SPLOST 5 to spend. And she got an audit committee established. Andrew Siffer is going to be our new school board member. And I know we will support him any way we can, but I did want to thank school board member Anna Hill for her service. I want to thank the entire city team, including city council, for all the work you've done for us in this last year. Our residents are so appreciative of what everyone does for the community. And I think that's it. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. It's all good.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Stacy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.